more the precursor to what rock and roll and stuff like that became. Like modern jazz, when I hear like that, I don't usually vibe with that particularly much.
I'm
Each
just
their own.
I'm finally finding my metal roots is the only thing that I can say, like it's a very weird, and I do it like a joke, like kind of when I say yeet or YOLO or something for the kids, but it's just like, because the kind of metal that I've been listening to, most of it is like covers. And so, like go listen to all your favorite Disney songs as metal, and it's just
sometimes that works really well.
So yeah. So
you need to check out one of my favorite like YouTube bands. Let me just
we've got time for this. It's okay, director.
It's called they're called Our Last Night. They've done Disney Goes like metal and stuff, and they have like tons of like those reimagining songs. They're really great.
Surprisingly, haven't heard of them, because it's like there's a couple that I'm like I'm waiting for you to tell me somebody I already know, but I'll put it on the list. Like we hung out with
you should check out Glory Hammer. Sabaton's pretty all right, but Glory Hammer I think is pretty good. Definitely high concept albums trying to tell a story through the songs.
Yeah, and, I don't got time for that shit.
There's a metal band
want to listen to some good songs.
A Dragon Force is kind of sound. I don't know what that is called. I can't remember what that sound of metal is, but that kind of band. But they only make songs based on Wheel of Time.
Oh yeah,
and they're actually quite good.
Yeah, I'm probably not the target audience. Like if they sound great, then great, But
but to get the story, you'd have to read all those 13.
Yeah, I have only read the first one.
13. Isn't it like 20 now?
If you're not
no, Wheel of Time is finished.
Yeah.
14 books. I think I have them all over there. Just haven't read them.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah. They're huge though, and they took like 30 years to write to slides. But
songs, then I'd say like 15. Sabaton. I would just do Sabaton. Then all their songs are very individual. You'll listen to
unlike they're very big. Unlike Codex Alera, which is a reasonable amount of length.
Yeah, power metal.
Look, kids.
Glory Hammer is also power metal.
I'm just gonna tell you right now, I'm not gonna learn the difference between power metal, electric metal, hair metal, death metal, poison metal, garbage metal. Shut the fuck up.
How can I even talk metal with you if you won't recognize the different subgenres,
Because what we're gonna do is we're gonna pivot to the fact that music genres are made up. And there's way too many of them for it to make any difference whatsoever, because you're going to run into the genres that have like single digits number of bands, and it's not useful at that point. Like, so I'm just going to stop you right there.
Also, metalcore is the best form of metal.
Sure. Shut up. I don't care.
Stand there on an island because the rest of us don't care.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying, because it's like this we don't have time for. So
we absolutely don't. We have a schedule. We have to get through all of Princeps today
somehow
to keep to the schedule. Oh man, yeah. All right, Princeps. Tavi is acknowledged, sort of. He is known by most people, at least as existing, because of his amazing pronouncement of his name and his title and his birth and everything. But he didn't do it quite in the way that Gaius wanted. And now there's some problems.
Which, by the way, I didn't get to say this last time. That was the moment I'm talking about from the very beginning of the series, is the coolest moment of the entire series. He's setting up it's paying off all that watercrafting setup. It's paying off all that emotional setup from the name, the very first time you see his name. Anyway, so it's just great. Just great.
So when he replaced himself with, or
it's
you mean
it's the best recap episode of any anime.
Okay, so you mean the one where he like gets back with the guys and he makes them get a truth finder and like that,
right, exactly.
That reveal?
That is just awesome. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, and I mean the exile thing though is not just because he revealed himself in a non-traditional way and not the way that Sextus wanted him to, but he literally broke the law, and he could be a traitor of the crown, and the last thing they need him to do is be pinned down in a prison where a bunch of people want to murder him while we sort that out, so
yeah. Tavi is doing the thing that he also suggested that every other free Aleran that wants to go join Alera again is like, you were fighting against the Alera forces, so now do this service and then we'll call it good. And so all of them are taking the Canim back to Cania as
They're
that
escorting
form of
them.
service. Yes,
Yeah.
escorting the prisoners of war need to be escorted away, and that'll take a couple of months. And then when he comes back, guys will have everything figured out. It's as close as, to a good plan as they can get because of all of the political things and all of the assassins. And like Tavi does not run from fights, but he is quite happy to actually be away from the continent for a while.
Title.
Yeah, he was happy to be away from the continent and the potential assassins for a little while, where at least he knows where the enemy is going to be on the ship.
Point of order. Tavi of Calderon is one of his proper titles. Like, do we have to use like his full? Because it's going to take us 15 minutes to say his name.
Gaius Octavian, the first of his name. Well, actually, I guess not the first of his name.
Yeah, we had that problem last time.
The 8th of his name. Yes, that's literally the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First Octavian.
Right.
The only
8th
Octavian.
of his line. Yeah. So
because he's about to add a title in this book too, right? You know, so which is one of my favorite things, but
sort of hides it, whatever. We'll get there. But there is a point like Maximus and Crassus and everyone just start calling him Your Highness because he's the Princeps. And like Kitai obviously doesn't give a shit. And then there's Marcus who just says Captain. No matter what title Tavi gets to, he's just Captain. That is all he is. But everyone else is like, yes, Your Highness.
Yeah, and he talks about it. He's like, you know, it's okay because I'm still their captain to them, you know, and whatever. But yeah.
So it would also make sense for Maximus and Crassus, but they're too highborn. Even Maximus is like, I can't just not call you this title now. Yeah. So
I always took it as Max like poking at him, you know, a little bit, is because it's like they shared a bunk. Like, yeah, okay,
both.
Yeah, you're my king, but you know, whatever you say, Your Highness, you know, it turns into more like, I'm gonna really date myself here by referencing the old animated like Link cartoons, you know, the Zelda cartoons. Excuse me, princess, you know, so you get some of that out of Maximus.
I mean, that's also a meme, so the kids will probably.
Well, isn't it from a Zelda CDI game technically? Well, I don't know.
Anyway, continue. The director's lost on this one apparently. So
I knew that there was an animated cartoon of Zelda something, but that all right, you've lost me beyond that.
Right after the live action Mario Brothers. Come on now. Not the movie.
The old one was really the old one was actually really charming. I'll have to say that.
Yeah.
Let's see. There's how many ships? I don't remember the number. There's tons and tons of ships because the Canim are actually really capable at building ships. They're really good carpenters. They have all the makers, the maker class that they're working together and have been for a couple of years. And now that they had Fury crafting to be able to help tenuously. And still, Tavi's going to take Demos's Slive as being his flagship. Because
interesting choice, because, you know, pirate, and yet it's like the most capable ship on the water, and
I feel like
crew is the best crew, you know.
He kind of permanently owns the captain now. That was a lot of money. Like, this is
did he do the chains thing at the end of the last book? Was that
no?
He started this.
Oh, is it okay?
Demos completed
I was like, we didn't
job.
talk about it. You know,
yeah. Demos completed the job, and then it's like, if you want to get back onto my ship, you have to replace all of those chains that you broke for the slaves. And Tavi expected something like that to happen because pirate, and so everyone else is invited on board for this whole expedition except for Tavi. And Maximus is about to like punch somebody, even though that's a bad idea.
He's like, you know, armies at your command, just give me the word and we'll make this happen, you know.
Yeah. And so then Tavi says, okay, I will replace your chains, but you have to promise and agree on this oath that you will not break your word, that these are the only ones you will ever use again. And he produces chains and slavers, braces and all that made entirely of gold. So the amount of money in that is just like, God, that's a lot of gold. I can't even calculate it.
I think it's several ships worth, at least. Many ships. I think it's kind of downplaying a little bit what's his life's captain's name?
Demos.
His, like, who he is. It's not because pirate. It's more he's an extremely he's a principled man for good and bad. Also, like when I'm bought, I stay bought. So
Right.
it's got nothing to do with that he wants to be in the slave trade, and just that you destroyed my property.
Yeah, I might have said it badly. What I meant of like Tavi's going to have to repay Demos for the property he destroyed because of the pirate nature. The fact that they were slave chains was part of the contention, but that's not even what Demos was really talking about. It was just like those are his rhetoric that he's relying on for the principle of the fact that he needs to be paid back for the damage of his property.
Right. And I mean, to further the thing, like the golden chains is much like Tavi's style. It's got multiple meetings, and those are not lost on Deimos. And so he's like, I take this, and now I'm the one in chains. But
I
also,
thought
they
about
would
that
be
too.
useless to hold slaves too, and he just kind of goes through the layered meanings with Tavi and then says, yeah, okay, this more than covers what you owe me. Let's get on board,
There's the term golden handcuffs in work today. So like very much like that's what it was, right? Like
quite literally.
It's too good to pass up. I now own you.
Yeah, and great reference for sure.
Yeah. So Tavi gets on a boat again and is immediately sick. Everyone else is fine, but Tavi cannot handle being on a boat. Because they're not skirting around the edge of the continent, they're crossing the ocean. So then the activity of the water is so much more. Tavi is even sicker. Yeah. I don't remember how long it took for them to run into the first storm, but it was still while he was incapacitated, and everyone was tired of listening to him whine and then puke into a bucket. And Kitai was trying to be as nice as she could of giving him crackers and a bucket at alternating times. But even she just like, I can't do this anymore. And she just walks out, leaves him in the room alone while the terrible storm is coming. And then everyone's trying to keep the ship upright and not drowned, and everyone's unconscious. But by that point, at the end of it, Tavi is able to walk around and he's perfectly happy again, sort of.
Yeah, we're also skipping over like one of the most minor characters, but like one of my favorite flavors, which is Old Man Canim. Where he's like, "Storm's coming, I feel it in my bones." That part is played by a Canim this time, and it's just like everyone's like, "We could see for 100 miles in every direction. There ain't shit out there until it's on them."
Oh, no.
So
yeah, I'm not old yet, but I can feel a storm coming in my bad knee. So it's like I know what he's talking about.
Right.
Yeah, that was. This expedition of all of the Alerans and the Canim, they have the orders to learn each other's cultures and their languages. So everyone has to go through language classes and not kill each other in the middle of it. And people like Marcus is in charge of making sure some people don't kill each other. And he was doing some of the language classes with that old Canim. I don't remember his name. I wish I did. And they just kind of old soldier respecting the old soldier, like out of like camaraderie. And they say something of like, "Oh, Varg wants to talk to you," or something like that. Come over to the ship, and Marcus has to go over there. And Tavi had optimistically decided that there was going to be no spycraft on the Canim while they're all traveling in ships with each other, and then all of the cursors promptly ignore him. And
right. Magnus is like, "You were serious? You expected me to do that? You expected me to follow that order?" Yeah.
And Magnus is like, "Of course we're spying on them. Of course we need them. They're spying on us. This is just the nature of things. You can say all the good things and you can think it's not happening, but also here's the map with all the information that you need." But speaking of, Marcus was summoned to, I think it was Varg's. Yeah, it was Varg's flagship. What they call that? The True Blood, I think. Gigantic ship, because everything needs to be like 3 or 4 feet taller just for the Canim to be able to fit comfortably. And there was a language class happening, and a younger Canim of, I don't know, maybe only 100 years old was getting all uppity. And he said that Marcus smells bad. And he meant either you smell like a monkey, but Marcus is saying, like, you're right. My sense of smell isn't as good as yours. And it's just like, it's an insult, but it's not.
Yeah, you get the whole internal dialogue, because Marcus is like, if I correct him poorly, he's going to try to kill me. you know, and so I'm not going to give him the excuse. And so he's super freaking tactful, and the damn thing tries to attack him again anyway.
Yeah.
And so you get to see more Canim diplomacy, you know, as Marcus like bends him over backwards and smacks him on the snout and says, "Are we done here?" You know, so
Twisting the ear seems really important.
Marcus is also letting his Fidelius show a little too much.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a running theme in the last couple books. Yeah.
After that was dealt with, and he realized that Vard kind of set it up in a way to make Marcus do that. I think it was to show that to the younger Canim that they really do have to respect the Alerans. There was a lot of layers going on with what Varg and Nassog were doing. And then it's like, oh, that storm is coming and you don't have time to get back to your ship. I'm so sorry. We'll make you as comfortable as possible. And Marcus
is putting you in the worst quarters on the ship.
Right. Well, and Marcus is very aware. It's like what you think is comfortable and what I think is comfortable is very, very different. But
it's comfortable because you didn't try to kill me.
Yes. Right. Still breathing.
And he didn't get tossed overboard by the storm.
Well, what's great though is, of course, the reason he's in the least comfortable quarters is not because they're the least comfortable, but because the spycrafters of the Canim, by virtue of their sense of honor, always take the worst quarters. That's my sense of it, anyway.
Oh, I didn't take it that way, but that's interesting. You know,
that's how the makers and that's how the warrior class and the interaction with the whole government. So the hunters, that's right. So that seems to be the hunters' whole thing. Maybe I'm reading into it too much. That might not be textual.
I don't think you are reading into it too much. I think that's part of it. There is that they are outside of the rest of the society in particular ways. Like later, they say something about like they basically hold a funeral for each other when they join the ranks of the hunters because they know that they're going to give their life in forms of service. So they're in a way already dead.
Yeah, they're dead when they join up. Yeah, so
Legions of dead and all that.
You know, it also, you know, just since we're talking about it, it gets them around their code of honor by doing that because, you know, the hunters are used to do things like Varg couldn't do to solely his honor, and so then they'll send the hunters, you know, and
so specifically right now, Varg wants to tell Marcus of the other ritualist. Do you remember his name? That is causing internal strife.
Oh goodness, I should see if I can find a list of characters because I'm not remembering anybody. Like
it's the new Sarl, right? We have a new, just like we have a new senator, we have a new Sarl.
Yeah, so there's a new Sarl, a new ritualist, and he's going with the new ways and something like the demons, which they call the Alerans. Like we can't trust them, we have to kill them, and something like we should just attack all of their boats and everything. And Varg has been having this fight with this guy for months, if not years, of no, we're not going to do that. And Varg is still technically in charge, but this guy has a huge support of the maker class that he's basically manipulating. And Varg cannot tell Marcus of this problem because it would be in violation of his own honor to protect and hide the problems internally, but the hunters can. And so the hunters, like, there's 3 of them. I was like, gosh, I'm really bad with names today. Like Shaw is one of them. And then the other 2, I don't remember. And then, so Marcus gets the idea that it's like, okay, there's something happening and I need to like drop hints there or at least see where this goes. And it's the worst quarters, but the storm is coming and he's got nothing to do but lay on a bed and go to sleep. And so that's what he does. Let's see. Around this time, switching back to the continent, Bernard and Amara were up in the Calderon Valley and building defenses. They are reinforcing everything in Calderon and Garrison that they can manipulate with fairycraft and money and people of just building more and more defenses. And they're quite happy with their little home life that they've kind of got. And then a messenger shows up with a carriage and says, if you don't come with me, I'm arresting you, by summons of the First Lord Sextus.
I'm glad you brought this up because that was something that, you know, happened later that I was like, when the hell did this all happen? Why did we play this under the radar? And it felt like one of the, like it was almost Deus Ex where it was like, this is the perfect thing, the perfect time. And it would have been really cool if it was like foreshadowed in some way. So I guess I just missed it when
as I was reading. Everyone else did. It makes sense to have missed it because everyone, like even characters, like, how did you do this?
Right.
Is it because he had some amount of time? Bernard had time, and he knew that the Vord was coming at some point. So it's like, if he cannot affect all of Alera, he can at least protect the Calderon Valley. And that's what they do. But Bernard and Amara are summoned to Alera Imperia for a really important meeting. They're given no explanation. Isana was staying with Arya up in Placida, and they get the same summons. And there's a description that Isana has also been attacked by assassins a few times because she is the one that has the proof and is the witness of Tavi's birth and the Septimus's marriage. So if they kill her, then they can no longer do the truth telling, and they can try to undermine Tavi's legitimacy. And Raris is always with Isana, as always.
Right. Which leads to the best Isana subplot in the entire series.
A good one.
And it's. I mean, there might be another one that's a little bit close in the next book, but this is really the best use of Isana to show that. I think there's a sense where you can, just by hearing you say that, it's not the plot reason for her to get all this assassinations is just what you said, because only she can do the truth telling. Surely she can show that she is a worthy, was truly the wife of Septimus and so on. But the whole plot is for our benefit and for the internal character's benefit to show that she was a worthy wife of Septimus, and that's the big reveal at the very end. I think is a very satisfying one, that she's not just a woman who can do dishes really well or who can drown people with the river. She's wily, she's clever, she's interesting, she's interested in doing right, whatever the cost. Mm-hmm. So it's really a fantastic character thing for Isana, and a really interesting interaction with the last of the surviving races of this world.
Yeah, we'll go into a lot more of the detail of this, but you're right. This is Isana being the first lady of Alera in and reality.
Deservedly too. Not just from like she's got the best superpowers, but because of her character, which is kind of what Tavi did too. Well, the superpowers come.
Yeah, but so all of the High Lords, Isana included, are summoned to Alera Imperia to the same meeting of Bernard and Amara. And when they get there, there's some basic fanfare, and they see that it's really filled out in the auditorium that they're in, but there's also some pockets of people missing. Like there's only Veratus there representing Ceres, and everyone else is gone. And what's happening?
Oh. It stands to point out as well that a bunch of those people just didn't make it up to this point anyway. But as far as we know, Lord Ceres is still kicking around. He's just elsewhere, So
yes, Lord Ceres is
busy. She lost brothers in the Civil War with Claire and stuff like that. Ceres was the place that got besieged. Actually,
I don't think so. I think her brothers died during this conflict, like right before this happened. Because. So the prologue was all about Aaron being a cursor down in the south when the wastes around Claire. And
and they get jumped. Yeah,
and it was some of the people that you can recognize that were hunting Bernard and Amara in Captain's Fury, and it's the same names, and they were just running around trying to be bandits or something, and Aaron is there, and they run straight into the Vord, and the Vord have Fury craft, and Aaron was trying to he tried to save one of the guys that didn't get killed immediately, but it didn't happen. And so it was like a mercy killing. But then Aaron had to go straight to Gaius and Alera Imperia and everything to report that the Vord are very secure in the wastes because people can't really get into it. They're highly populated and they have Fury craft. This is a huge problem. And this is what Ceres was starting to fight, and this is when the heir and son of Ceres died, and so Veratus is now the heir and probably only surviving child of Lord Ceres, and it's why she's crying in the middle of this address and meeting, and she's having to describe what has happened and who has died and the casualties that they've taken, and she's still very friendly with Isana and all that, but there's the Count from Riva, who dismisses everything entirely, and he always has dismissed everything about the Vord, especially because he doesn't like Bernard, because Sextus had appointed Bernard as Count of Garrison instead of allowing Riva to control it, and it's like a lot of infighting that's starting to come to a head. more happens in the next book. But there's a lot of people who are just like, this isn't possible. And when they do the like holographic map of here's everything that is Alera, and here's this gigantic green spread that is the Vord, and it's going to eat all of the country within a year if we don't do something. And everyone has to get all of their legions to be able to team up together and go down. And as people are bickering and yelling, Aquitaine, without NVIDIA there, challenges someone to Juris Macto unless they shut the fuck up. Because he understands that when this is serious, this is actually going to a threat to Alera, and Aquitaine still wants to do the best service he can to Alera. And there's an understanding between him and Sextus that, like, if this goes badly, Aquitaine might take over. Or it's like, in exchange for helping Sextus and not fighting him on this, Sextus will help support something else that Aquitaine wants, which is probably taking over.
Right. Yeah, you get to see them play more friendly, and it's like, you know, they're still conniving backstabbers, but they're at least backs to each other now, you know. So they're all facing out together.
Yeah, there's a tenuous type of handshake look, something of like, okay, we can agree on this point at least. Aquitaine is declared general of the armies and all of it, and then Isana has her own assignment that comes after Bernard and Amara's assignment, and Amara is still very broken up over what happened with the volcano, and she hates Sextus, but she still wants to help him, and she's very conflicted. What Sextus says to her and Bernard is, it's the only thing or they are the only people he can give this task to, and so of course they have to take it.
Right.
He asks them to go into the Vord territory and find the queen, find valuable information of how to fight them, and he'll give them any resources that he can, like money, highly costed things.
Right.
And this is when the, what do you call it, those dress material that alters the color.
Yeah, they basically get predator shrouds because they get their hooks into NVIDIA Aquitaine's fashionista, you know, who was creating. It was such a great thing where it was like, this could have otherwise been a throwaway thing about like, look at rich people, and then it turns into like Amara and Bernard were given a credit card with no limit, and they literally paid money as no object, and you know, the fashionista whatever still whinged the entire time while crying themselves to sleep on literally a small mountain of gold, you know, and whatever. But one of the main parts of their mission, I was going to say, is that they're supposed to find the Fury Crafters as well, right? Is that they seems like Gaius thinks that, you know, like, he's got theories on how it's being done, but he's like, we need to find where they are, how they're doing it, stuff like that. Other teams have been sent there, but let's be honest, none of them are in the opening credits. So you guys are going to have to go do it, you know? But.
Yeah. As Bernard and Amara are leaving and they're trying to tackle this gigantic thing, and then they get the idea of the predator shroud, essentially, is when Isana and Arya are walking in, and Bernard is like, oh, that's a great idea. And Amara, it's like, they're not really explaining everything to Isana, and Mara's like, oh, but those are so expensive. And Bernard says, it's not our money.
Right.
And Arya and Isana is like, what the hell just happened? It's like, they married each other for perfect reasons. We're good. It's fine.
Right. Yeah.
And Sextus is asking Isana to go to the ice wall to stop the war with the Icemen, so that Antyllus and Phrygia can finally take their legions down south and help against the Vord, because until the Icemen stop attacking, it's just never ever going to happen, and they can't do without those legions.
Which brings up a great point about, I think, Phrygia and Attila have actually been fighting for generations and have generational knowledge, whereas a lot of these other legions are kind of for show, never seen combat. They're theoretically powerful with no practical experience. So just imagine Knights Pisces everywhere, but these are the guys who actually have been fighting the only active war in Alera this whole time.
Right. Yes. Yeah, exactly. They're all veteran legions, and also importantly, much, you know, like in not necessarily like a similar way, but how Kalair just like magically had extra legions. They have militia that they've trained to nearly legion levels. And so like they've got their 3 proper legions like every city has, but they have like maybe another, like I don't remember what the number was, but it's like another 3 legions worth of militia that are almost as armed and armored and trained as a proper,
like every
know,
single man that lives there that served in the Legion is still actively fighting, it seems like, pretty often, and has all been kept their armors and swords, is from what
Which
I
is
gathered.
technically not what Antilus is supposed to allow. He's supposed to
Right.
take back the armor and the swords, but he just conveniently doesn't do anything about it as they go missing, and it protects his people because sometimes the Icemen come over the wall, and sometimes that they need to fight still, and so that is his way of protecting his people.
And so you see, I think one of the really great things about the series is that almost all of the antagonists have the explicit motivation of protecting their people. The Canim have this, not Sarl, obviously, but the Canim have this in general. All the Canim leaders, other than Sarl, pretty much. All of the Aleran traders, save one, right? And I think the Vord are the only ones who are the main antagonists who don't have an intention of saving their people, but everyone else pretty much does. Daroga of the Marat in the very first book absolutely has that motivation. So it's a recurring theme, and it's a point of common ground for all of these peoples, and it's what makes them it makes it very satisfying to have that heel turn. I won't say that's the only way to make a good villain, but I think it's what makes it possible to turn the antagonist into an ally, which is another one of the things that Tavi does so well. But it's only possible when there is that common ground if they want to protect their people. I get that. Tavi gets that. And Tavi is not just I want to protect Alera in the abstract. I want to protect every individual, and every loss hurts me personally.
You're touching on another point that was kind of like in the back of my head reading through all of this, which was like in another setting, in another situation, what's going on with Alera and all of the characters is like it's too good, right? Where it's just like Tavi's the best at what he does, even though he's a farm boy. Isana's the best. Bernard's the best. Amara's the best. Gaius is the best. Like all of their mistakes happen like off screen and were like character building moments and that sort of thing. Like they almost never make a mistake on screen, right? And then even like the bad guys are bad guys for all the right reasons and stuff. And like to me, it's funny because like every time something like this starts to get set up, it started to nag at me that it was like, everything is so perfect in a way, but it's just like, again, like I've said, where it's like all the Legionnaires and everybody are superheroes. That's just how fucking bad it's about to be. Like, that it's like, it's not the Alerans and it's not the, like, obviously you have the senators and, you have the Aquitaines, like, naughty retainers and whatever you want to say. Like they're running around being treacherous douchebags and whatever, right? But like left to their own devices, Alera would tick on, things would be fine. They would have had their civil war, but they would have come out the other side of it. But then it's just like, but no, you're going to fight something even bigger and scarier, which is why like all of your heroes need to be quasi perfect, because it's still not going to be enough, and it was just kind of like an interesting thing that I was like, oh my God, like not another like Captain America, but it's like, oh, don't worry. In like 35 pages, his arms and legs are going to get chopped off by the Vord, or whatever. Because
what happened
that's just
to
what it felt like.
The Aquitaines' secret legion / legions that was never really mentioned in this book. Seems like
no, they're still active on Aquitaine's payroll.
Yeah, but
they're
are they?
Isana's bodyguards. I mean, like basically,
it felt like through this book, like it would have been rather relevant to have them
they're not a legion. They're not legion force. Think of them almost more like Navaris from last book, where it's like, there's like a couple dozen of them maybe, and they're all really good at what they do and they've been training and whatever, but it's more like they're SEAL Team 6, like they're going to go do the thing. But even still, you don't ever see them I don't remember ever seeing them like tip the tide of battle. Their big thing was, back in what was it, Cursor's Fury, where they helped with the the escape, springing the captives. That was probably like their most, like on screen effective use. Other than that, it's just like, you've got Aldrich X Gladius and he's almost as good as Araris, you know,
Oh, that's
and yeah, like so
he'll
they're
come back.
around. They still get used, yeah, but you never see them used as effectively as they were there, you know. So
Yeah, I was just thinking that also some of the like Odiana and the first blade, really good duelist guy that I can't remember
Aldrich.
the name of now. Aldrich.
Yeah.
Why they like we don't see them at all in this book.
Yeah,
we're just that's true.
Seems like they would have been like
things.
they are very, very powerful individuals that sure could have been useful in this here battle.
Yeah, but we've also progressed to the point where it's like a lot of this book and everything like that is we've surpassed the citizenry. Okay, like the citizens now become the like, you know, general legion, because the legion is gonna start being like helpless, you know, almost by comparison. Like they're just outclassed in a lot of ways, and so like even people like Aldrich and them are like just barely a footnote of what we're dealing with now, because we've now moved into citizens and the first lords territory, where it's like these guys are the ones getting pushed. These guys are the ones that are like, I don't know if we're going to make it. So anybody less than that is a red shirt, you know? So like, we haven't gotten to there just yet, but you know, you're going to start to see like the Vord are very smart. The Vord are very adaptive, and they adapted to Legion tactics and arms and armament like very quickly, and it's bad for everybody else, you know? So, but you also get like, we start talking about things in the hundreds of thousands and millions instead of like the tens of thousands, like when the Canim showed up, and that was a bad day, you know. So it just like you've got such a scale that it has to be, you know, an entirely different story. But
yeah. So topic change essentially. When Isana is getting this task from Sextus, and she and Arya is like, why are we doing this? This is very strange. Arya is kind of against making any form of peace with the Icemen because she has two sons. Both of them are assigned to Antylos and the Ice Wall to end. So she does not like the fact that the Icemen have now tried to kill her sons. She doesn't want to be nice to them. But Arya accepts the task just as much. Mostly, she's going to support Isana, and this is Isana's task as First Lady of Alera, because who else is going to have the authority to broker any kind of truce? And Isana notices that Sextus is not feeling well, and it's not just the stress of war. And she asks Arya to leave, and she flat out says to Sextus, "You're dying." And Sextus knows. He says he's got maybe about a year left. And so he's hoping that it'll be enough for him
a little too much powder.
Yeah.
Not his fault though.
yes and no.
Yeah.
He was hoping that he'll have enough time to help fight the Vord, and when Tavi comes back, he can prepare the way for him to be the actual princeps and recognized and everything, so that the realm can be held whole. Isana was like, she's a powerful watercrafter. Can she do anything about it? Well, Sextus is just as powerful of a watercrafter, and he can't do anything about it. He is just dying. And it's one time when they actually feel like affection for each other, or at least something a little bit beyond understanding. Just the fact that they did both love the same men, of both Septimus and Tavi, and so that connection between them matters more in that moment. But Isana and Arya go to the ice wall, and Antylos, who's very like super soldier, it does not want to do anything of peace, and he says that you're crazy, you're an idiot, this isn't working. It's not going to work, and we can prove it. And I think this is an important type of story to see that because Isana can only do watercrafting, she doesn't have any of the latent firecrafting that everyone is using to keep themselves warm. She sees things differently than them. And in fact, everyone's acting really bizarre. Like, everyone just gets too irritated, too aggressive, too angry, and it just doesn't quite make sense. Even Arya, who's usually controlled and reserved,
and very like, generally has been shown as very friendly, right? Like she's a pretty good person in this world, or like from everything we've ever seen. And I like how even Daroga, who like always thinks that the Alarans are weird and do weird shit and act weird and are like do dumb like are dumb. It's like when she gets so confrontational, he's like, I mean, even I thought this was extraordinarily odd.
Yeah,
what is going on here?
Daroga's great. It was great seeing him in the middle of this shit.
Yeah, it's great to have Daroga back front and center as a peacemaker, especially because most of the Alerans still don't trust him, that he's still a barbarian and whatever. And yeah, it was great, like, to see that turn with Arya to the point where Isana's like, you need to leave. You're jeopardizing our mission, and just having her tell her off initially,
Isana even slaps her, just like, you're losing your shit. This is not helpful, and just slaps the shit out of her. And it was, of course, shocking. No one does that to a high lady. No one does that to Arya. Yeah. And yeah, but the whole area.
We like Arya, right? Like that's the other thing. So we're like, Isana did what she had to do. We like Arya. Something is really fucking weird here,
Yeah.
So.
But everything's covered in snow, but the whole area surrounding Arya has melted because she's doing the firecrafting a little bit too much, and it's just the basic level that they do to keep themselves warm. But it's as Isana starts to see it's interacting badly with things, and there's the Icemen show up at this meeting that's just a bit north of the wall, and Daroga is there, and he gives them names, and I don't remember the names, and some of it was like Golden Morning or something like that. I don't know. I don't remember.
Had a near miss with a different inappropriate name, but so. Yeah. There was red something, but
right?
like, because he was the upstart with them, I thought. But it's funny, and I tried to look for a list, and it's like, yeah, I know all of those characters, but like nobody cares. I'm sorry, but it's important for the story, and whatever. But yeah, I just can't remember them.
So. And this is one of the books that I don't have hard copy. Otherwise, I would have gone through and highlighted them. The description that they get out of the Icemen is that there's some kind of a verbal communication, and Daroga knows it and is able to translate. This is one of the reasons he's there as part of the peacemaking process. But more so than that, there is the Icemen communicate with each other completely non-verbally, and Isana can feel it because of the watercrafting. They do it entirely through emotions, and that's bizarre. Are they doing watercrafting with Furies? We don't know, but they're doing something that's akin to it. And there's the one meeting, and then there's going to have a bigger meeting of all things like that to actually broker things out. And Isana's getting somewhere in progress as to, like, we really do need to stop this because the Vord are that level of an existential threat. And Daroga backs her up on that. And the Icemen care about Daroga's words.
And also meta perspective, Tavi needs some enemies to make friends to fight the Vord in the next book.
Mm-hmm.
I have a feeling
he's getting some more of those anyway, but
yeah, but we need more. Have you seen what happened on Canim? We need more friends, even more.
Yeah, the main guy, the main Iceman is called Big Shoulders, and yeah, like, which is different from River Shoulders, right?
Barely.
But yeah, and then like, one thing that gets like lost over by the rest of them is like Daroga finds out that their people aren't just called the Icemen. Go figure. They're what is it? Gadrim Ha. So yeah, I found that chapter.
Yeah, why would
like
they
this is actually like Icemen? Where we are. So we're like,
oh, nice,
a little less than halfway through. So
yeah, but we're like ignoring Tavi in giant chunks right now so we can get somewhere.
Yeah. And I think the guy that we liked, the Canim teacher, was Laurel. Or is that the guy after?
No, that's the asshole.
Okay, yeah. Which that's one we need to get back to because that's a great scene.
It's great. Yeah, so it's the grandpa Canim, grandpa soldier Canim in the beginning.
Yeah.
So Isana's getting another meeting at like dawn or something with all of the Icemen, because they have different chieftains essentially for different aspects of it. Like one of them with red something is the chief of war, and the other one is the chief of peace, and they have different weapons and they have the different divisions because they have a culture that no one from Alera has decided to learn yet. And Isana's very like determinedly optimistic that this is going to work, and then still everyone is telling it this isn't going to work, this isn't going to work, and you're an idiot. But at this new meeting, it starts to work, and she like allows the Iceman to touch her, and she's like watercrafting a whole truth. She completely undoes her normal shielding of emotions to describe how badly she needs their help and how much she wants to make a truce with them. And Antylos starts a surprise attack using her meeting as the diversion, and completely it was kind of almost like an act of treason, because he was given orders to help her and support this meeting, and now he's just completely going against it because of course she's wrong, and he's so certain of that he destroys the peace process. Yeah. And this was a moment even when readings I had forgotten.
Now.
Yeah, it was just like, if I was Isana right there, I would challenge her to Juris Macto, and then she did. It's like, oh yeah, this is what happens.
It's so freaking great because like she's been spending a lot of time with Araris, especially after getting kidnapped last book, right? And so he's been trying to teach her some basic self-defense. She is not remotely on the same planet as fighting Antylos, who has been in the trenches, you know, because he's part of he actually starts the epilogue, right? Where you basically see Antylos is literally Supermaning around doing his firecrafting when the walls start to get overrun. And he basically lands and helps a legion push the Icemen back because they had made ice ramps. And, you know, between all the ice and the bodies and things like that, they were storming the wall. And he has to basically like shore up an entire like centuries worth of troops, you know, and everything like that to help him out. And yeah, and she challenged that guy, you know, to Juris Macto.
Yeah.
And he's
Aquitaine
High Lord powerful. Like he's
they
probably
were all buddies in school.
Yeah, he is probably the only High Lord that is as powerful as Aquitaine, I think. Or like, would that be? That's what I get. Like,
I feel like I feel like he was Aquitaine's Maximus, you know, in a way where it's just like he wasn't the main spoke of their group, or well, like the main point of their group, but he was like, you know, a very strong side character. And yeah, it was Aquitaine, Antylos, and I don't remember who the other one was. If it was like Phrygia's husband, or Aria's husband.
I don't think so. So Septimus, Aquitaine, Antylos, Aldrich,
maybe it was,
and then
Septimus,
Araris and Miles that kind of made the core of that group, I think.
Under Nettis, right? Nettis was the swordsman or the instructor of that.
I was going to say,
he was a teacher. Yeah.
Like even Araris, Miles, and Aldrich seemed like the kids, like hanging on to that group, and maybe it's just because they weren't the High Lords, and so I
think it was just that.
Know, yeah,
there's the ones that were the High Lords, but the core of the group was all of them.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to point out one thing of the Alerans not having noticed the fact they know that the Icemen always show up during the worst blizzards, but Daroga points out they bring the blizzards. That's why they're always there.
Right. Maybe you got it the wrong way around. So
yeah. But with this Juris Macto challenge, Araris is about to have a stroke, lose his fucking mind, because he doesn't want to do anything wrong to Antylos, and Antylos calls him Rari at one point of like, basically, Rari, take your woman and go away so this doesn't happen. But that's an endearment that not many people ever call him that. And I think Araris then describes he was a couple of years, like 1 or 2 years younger than Antylos, but they were all in school together. But Antylos tries to get Isana to back down, and she won't. Arya tries to get Isana to back down, and she won't. Then Arya tries to go to Antylos and says, would you please not murder my friend?
Right.
And he doesn't want to murder her.
The High Lady of,
yeah,
you know, like,
yeah. They have to. Neither one of them will back down, and they go back to that meeting place north of the wall, and they're going to fight. And Isana kind of knows that she has a little bit of advantage.
Is there anything better than Daroga reading the rules there? That's such a good scene.
Yeah. And then you walk 10 paces away and try to kill each other, I guess.
Yeah. It's like, I'm going to read these rules, which is stupid because you already know them all, and I'm the one who doesn't know what's going on. And are either of you going to back down? No? Okay, the stupidity is going to continue. And then like, you choose this weapon and you choose that place. This is already done. That's why we're all here. Why am I saying this out loud? And
yeah.
I don't think that the ceremony master is supposed to make commentary or whatever they say. He's like,
yeah, don't make Tarok the ceremony master then. He's going to give commentary. He's great. But he's also very honorable and neutral about it.
It's sort of like the best part of Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy, when you have just that the big guy who sees things very clearly and doesn't understand the social niceties and just cuts right through it. It's that kind of humor. I love it.
Without engaging in sarcasm, it's his own kind of humor to just completely power through sarcasm and not indulge in it at all.
Well, yeah, that's their whole thing. Is this? They always tell the truth, and they don't even have a word for lie. That's it's consistent use. It doesn't make him a joke, but it makes him an effective comic relief, which is really a great balance.
I mean, he's the straight man, right? You know, every comedy duo needs the straight man and I don't know, the other guy. But yeah, like he's definitely that guy. He's completely fucking serious, and that's kind of what's funny, you know. But
yeah. So the duel starts. Isana has a slight advantage in the fact that everything's covered in snow, and snow is just water. And Angelus has lots of other forms of fury crafting, but Isana has the one that she's just really, really good at. And so it's like it's a difference of focus. And she knows a little bit of how to use the sword, but she's starting able to use the basically bring up a small blizzard in the snow to be able to know where he is and also feeling all of his emotions, which is both daunting but very interesting. He really doesn't want to hurt her because he thinks he's being a bully, and so he's kind of holding back.
And it allows her to do kind of what Tavi did to Navarus in a way of she's not fighting his sword. She's surviving his sword. She's talking to him, to a person. And it is so emotional, you know, this duel that it's just like, she's going to fucking die. Juris Macto is to the death, you know, and this dude is a killer and he believes in what he's doing. And she's got no training, even if she also believes in what she's doing. But you see her pull off, you know, some amazing stunts where she's using the snow as a shield. And then she basically causes herself like a mini blizzard too, so that, you know, she knows where he's at. And then he just starts like burning shit away. And they actually like trade swords a couple of times, you know.
And she like covers things in ice a little bit as distraction, or like halting him and things like that. She did do the fury craft very well, but we don't read these books for the fury craft. We read them for the emotional turmoil.
There's the quote of the day. Yeah.
So as she's thinking about like, why is he so determined to hurt her? Why is he not supportive enough? Like, his sons are her son's friends. Like, isn't this important? And then she starts thinking of Maximus. It's like the thing that Septimus pulled off was marrying a common born woman and getting a legitimate heir out of it. And Maximus, his parents seemed to love each other, but because Max's mother was a common born woman, like Angelus was not allowed to marry her. It was never approved and it was fought against. And so that's why he
chicken shit to stand up to his father, and Septimus was not. And Antelar is mad about it.
Yeah, but rightly so. Like it makes sense, everything Angelus had to do. Of course he had to marry Dorothea for the bonding with Calera and like therefore keeping the realm intact and highborn things like that. And I'm sure he doesn't resent Crassus' existence, but what he wanted was to be able to marry the woman that he loved and the child that was born from it. But he couldn't do that. And so the fact that Septimus got away with it hurts. The fact that his friend did it.
He could, I mean, I would say he could probably do it as much as Septimus probably. He didn't have the same set of balls. If that's how I see it.
Yeah, but what Septimus did was even technically be worse in the fact that he's making a common born woman First Lady of Alera and not even just a High Lord Lady. And it's just like, it's both respect and love and sorrow and pain that like this thing should have happened to me too. But then also the guilt, the fact that Septimus is dead and he still feels bad, the fact that his friend is dead. And he doesn't trust Isana because who is this person he's never met before, claiming to be his friend's wife and the mother of his child? But as Anna is like talking about all of the emotions and things that Angelus has gone through, and he runs her through, but then when he understands what she's coming from and she's asking for help to protect her son, and he can tell that she's telling the truth, he gives up the fight and calls for Arya to come help her.
I know. I'm looking at that. I was like, oh right, and I'm like superimposing the scene from like Return of the King where you have Carl Urban, where he finds Eowyn on the battlefield, and it's just like, oh shit, I fucking killed Isana, because they're having a connection, but his subconscious is fighting the duel. Because like you have a scene where it's like she tries to like slice his fingers off so he can't fight, and he just like negligently parries it and it almost disarms her, and it like that's how different their skill level is, but he allows her to retreat so that they can continue their conversation. And they bond like most people bond on hating Gaius, Sextus and everything. And it's like, so why the fuck are you here? I'm not here for him. I'm here for my son. I found the chapter, but yeah, then at the end where he stabs her and then he's like, Arya, help me. I've done something terrible,
I mean, he realizes after that she's sincere, right? But even before that, you can tell that he really didn't mean to do that. He like threw his sword on instinct and just runs her through, and he's like, oh, I did not mean to. And then he really starts regretting it when he feels how sincere she is.
Yeah, as she's basically dying and she's not really caring about her own mortality, and she's just like, all this pain that you've had for so long and no one's like recognized it, I'm so sorry for you. But this is how he wins the fight, but he gives up the duel, so she comes out ahead sort of. And this is where the plot line kind of ends for this book.
Yeah.
Sticking with
the reintroduction of all those characters who are up at the north, like a lot later, like they're out for a while. It was really cool when they come back. Like that was a really cool chapter. Found that very enjoyable.
We're not following you. Yeah.
Oh, in this book, like they're gone for for several chapters. We don't see what's happening with them, and what happened to Isana. And then when we get back to them, they are in the south and surprise attack the Vord. That's the next thing we hear from them, and I thought that was like really, really cool.
Right, because I think it does like fade to black with Isana, right? And then we deal with Tavi and them, and we deal with Alera Imperia or whatever. For a minute. But yeah, and
it's basically Aaron's subplot, right? Is Aaron's subplot kind of? He shows at the beginning. He shows at this chapter.
He's our perspective, but all he is an observer, right? For the most part. So
yeah. So let's stick with Alera for a while, and then we'll end on Tavi, because that one is the I don't know. It's exciting.
So much fun.
So, yeah.
But.
So Bernard and Amara, they have their predator shrouds, and they start going through the muck and the trees and everything that like defines them as what they do for fun. Going hiking in the most terrible ways. They're going into the Vord territory. They can't actually interfere because it's only the two of them, and so they watch villages get destroyed by the Vord. They are tracking the Croach and its growth, and they watch other knights trying to save the villages and get murdered themselves.
And they can't talk because
if there are two characters who are just awful at just watching and not doing something about something bad they see, it's those guys. It's like really torture for them. Which, by the way, I guess that's why Amara is the cursor out in the open. She would be very ineffective as trying to be on the sly and not interfere with bad shit.
She does kind of have the Harry Dresden trait of loudly proclaiming who she is and what she's doing and how dare you get in my way. And they can't talk because they can't reveal their presence to the Vord, and they're kind of figuring out ways of walking over it. They made snowshoes to stop on the Croach. That's not going to be too delicate for their weight, especially Bernard's weight. And it was something that Tavi and Bernard had just developed in their letters back and forth of here's this thing that might work, and we won't see that again ever.
Certainly not in this book, even.
No, I think it will in this book. That was my joke.
I'm
Yeah,
being sarcastic too.
and he was like
So-
following up on that joke.
Yeah, right.
Let me
Sarcasm
explain
part.
the joke to everyone here.
It doesn't work when you counter me on, I'm trying to help. Don't fight me.
That's like you get into the rabbit hole of that whole type of joke. Like you just keep going back and forth.
Right.
This is why I like the people who don't do sarcasm. So we get to see the battle at Ceres, which is where they're trying to withhold the Vord. And we get to see it from Amara and Bernard's perspective, which is kind of terrifying still, just the amount of the lights and the devastation and the capabilities of the High Lords and the Vord. The Vord does have basically bugs that look like people that can fly and do fury craft, like very much like knights. They also have the immortals, or something very like the immortals. They have fury crafters in the discipline collars, and that's quite terrifying. What happened to these Alerans, and who's putting the discipline collar on them, and how can they get them out or do anything? But now they have to fight their own people. And at this fight, there's a moment about Rhodes, who's not really been a present character, but he's just mentioned on the side. Like, he is the one that Arya won the fight with for gaining her citizenship, because he was being a creep that wouldn't take no for an answer from her. And he was suspected as being one of the enemies of Septimus. And so 25 years later, Sextus got revenge on Rhodes, who's pretty sure was involved in his son's death, and set up Rhodes that he had to go basically kamikaze with all of the High Lord power death to attack all of the Vord. And it worked, sort of. But now Rhodes
it was a little bit more subtle than that too, right? Are they're at Ceres when this happens? Or because I thought it was either there or Alera Imperia, but yeah, like he basically has Rhodes do a very flashy tactic, which Rhodes was probably all about anyway, and he took a bunch of flyers with him, and they basically get taken out by the Fury Crafters, therefore also revealing where the Fury Crafters are, but yes, also getting his revenge and all of this stuff. And isn't it like Aaron points that out or whatever from his perspective? Or
because we see it either from Aaron's point of view or Bernard and Amara's, of like how flashing it was, and Aaron was like, so this was something that Sextus had set up, and then Sextus had said something of like, after 25 years now I have you, or like he had given it away that this was something he planned. And Aaron's like, oh, you're a scary old man. You just did that. You played into his like ego to make him do this thing, and now he's dead.
Right. I have no idea what you're talking about. So yeah.
Is this where Aaron overhears the conversation with Alera? Or is that at Alera Imperia?
I think it's Alera Imperia.
All right, then we'll wait. But yeah, Aaron is the personal valet essentially of Sextus, and trying to keep him both informed and like fed and watered and things like that. And the fight is going on. Invidia Aquitaine shows herself on the battlefield as being like, she might have been the one to kill Rose. She basically makes it so that Alera loses this fight, and it's terrifying of like, well, there she is, even though no one knew where she was, and she's like dressed in Vord clothing, and she has like a creature on her chest, and completely she's not wearing a discipline collar, so she's doing this of her own free will, as far as they can tell, and terrifying. And they see the Vord Queen, and it's scary. And so everyone has to retreat from Ceres and go back to Alera Imperia, and the Vord take over Ceres, and Bernard and Amara go inside to find out what's happening. And Amara knows how to get in there because of the like slave trade and cursor and stuff like that. Spycraft. And when they get inside, they see where the discipline collars are coming from, and it's Princeps Minoris.
I thought we heard the last from that guy.
No.
Well, now we have. But...
Yeah, not yet, but soon.
Very soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was shocked at the Rook scene, by the way.
Shocked. Oh yeah.
I was surprised.
Yeah.
One of the great things about the Rook scene is it, and then some of the other implications from this whole episode is they see that Bernard and Amara see, oh, we're not the first he sends. We're just the only ones left. He would he probably would not have trusted us with this mission if he could trust anyone else, but everyone else he trusts is dead. Or
no longer reporting.
It's So, like, it strikes me in the moment too that it's like maybe he legit liked Amara and wouldn't have sent her if he didn't have any other choice, where it's like, of course, they're the only two that could get this job done, but I'm not sure they're going to come back from it either.
Well,
You
the
know,
other
like,
part is
so.
they've ruined a relationship that at the end, he knows he ruined that relationship. So maybe he's making up for it. Maybe he's trying to make amends. This is a book where guys tries to make amends, kind of, but usually with brutal justice against his enemies, and less so mercy towards his friends. he's mostly about the brutal justice in this book.
Yeah, he tries to make amends, but mostly he makes a mountain out of a molehill.
Or a mountain out of a city.
Or molehill out of a city, yeah.
So to power through this, they hear a voice or several voices in the tunnels, and they know that there were other cursors that had been tortured and killed, and someone scary is doing this, and the two of the voices are going up against
them too. They found them in that whole So
and two of the voices are basically going up against the third, and it's like, yeah, that sounds familiar. And Rook had made sure that those other cursors were killed because it was better than them being alive, and also because they would reveal more information to the Vord Queen or Princeps or both, and that was a bad thing. And the other two were getting too suspicious of her and how she so conveniently seems to be there and scary, and she dispatches them. She's got the discipline collar on, so there's very little she can actually do to help. Amara goes out and talks to her alone, but Bernard stays hiding. Rook knows that Bernard will be there, but she doesn't want to know anything because she doesn't want to be forced to reveal it.
Right.
And they see a little bit of the process as Princeps is putting the collars on people. He's got all of the Fury Crafters held in the particular kind of prisons that make them incapable of doing things. Like the Windcrafters are buried in dirt. The Woodcrafters are held in metal. The Metal Crafters are held in wood, things like that.
Suspended cages for the Earth Crafters, and then it's like drenched water for the Fire Crafters, right?
Yes,
so,
yeah. So it's
and then
perfectly
for the
designed.
It's all the things.
Yeah.
Which, when I thought about it, I was like, so if they have multiple crafts where, like, let's Earth counters air, but they're both a powerful Earth and air crafter, can't they use this Earth being doused on them, this mud? Can't they craft that?
Those are the ones that also go in the metal cage and get suspended. Like,
yeah.
Long story short, basically, he has perfectly countered all of their crafting with cages, so.
Bad guy, scary. Let's leave it there.
Yeah, like scary, smart, but, just kind of still.
I think they also make a point in this story to say that only the High Lord of the High Lord, like only the highest, will have high pips in all of the disciplines.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's for 90% of the crafters, you can counter them with at least one or two little traps.
Right.
Yeah. And sometimes complex ones, but traps nonetheless.
So they see some of the people get the discipline collars put on, some of them of ones that Princeps knew. Like, I think it was even his fiance that he put the discipline collar on her and was just and now you're going to have to do what I say and not go betting Maximus all the time like you wanted to, things like that. He's definitely unstable and he's got his own issues, and he's wearing a collar himself. So he's answering to someone else. That Amara hatches a plan with Bernard, and we don't get to see much of it. And then she follows where Rook is and into the tower later. And Princeps is being his own weird, desperate tyrant. And
yeah, because he's basically in addition to all of them being caged, they're also all high on Aphrodin and other related drugs, right? So they're easy to manipulate anyway. And then you basically see the collaring process where, basically you're high on Aphrodin, which makes you susceptible. And he's got collared super babes nearby that are, start massaging you and just more than that even, but not like too much, but they get into it and they're whispering shit in your ear as he basically puts the collar on, and just like it is really fucked up what he's doing.
And he has a way of doing the discipline collar that is more than most other people can. It's something that him and Princeps Majoris had figured out or whatever, and now Invidio's wanting to get that information from him through his own discipline collar, and he can fight it a little bit. This is how he is valuable and how he stays alive.
Right.
Because he's also completely nihilistic of the Vord are going to win. You might as well be disciplined colored and then enjoy your time left and something or other. Just give up and move on. Rook is familiar to him. So Princeps wants comfort from her and takes it in every form that he can. And she's trying to say like, oh, they need you and all the things that he wants to hear. But also it keeps her alive longer. And then the Vord Queen and Invidia show up. They start asking questions, and the Vord Queen can read thoughts. And Rook accidentally gives away something about Amara, which is what she was afraid of.
Mhm.
And one of them, I think it was the Queen, kills Rook by ripping out her throat. And then she's like, "What is Masha?" Masha, the daughter, was sent to Caldron Valley.
Breaks your heart, doesn't it? That just
Yeah.
breaks your heart.
Yeah. Well, and Amara is basically watching this all from like 5 feet away because she snuck down there in her shroud with a wooden knife, right? Because they can sense the metal if it was
Stone
metal.
knife.
And is it stone? Okay, yeah. So she's getting ready to kill Princeps when the Invidia and the Queen show up, and decides to like take a shot at what she went after Invidia instead, right? Or something like that.
I think she killed the creature on her chest.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's how they find out that she's there. But yeah, the whole thing with Rook and, her dying thoughts being about her daughter and everything, is definitely tragic.
Yeah. But Invidia and the Queen then get to capture Amara, and they try to get information out of her. And Amara recognizes Invidia, and they go like snappy, bitchy stuff back at each other of like, of course you just gonna like turn traitor to everything that you ever cared about, never actually cared about anything, and blah, blah, blah. And Invidia's like, well, I'm the powerful one here, and I'm gonna hurt you. And she does, of course, but they're going to win, Invidia and the Queen, by Princeps taking a discipline collar and putting it on Amara. Could have seen that coming.
And yeah, some of the most horrific parts of this book, because basically like it's all but said that like capital R is going to be involved in this process, but she's going to like it because that's what the collar does, and it is gross and slimy and bad and wrong, and it also leads to like one of the best reveals in the entire fucking series. So
Amara is gross and slimy and covered in dirt, and Princeps wants his women clean, so he summons one of the girls to clean Amara while she is still disciplined and feeling the euphoric effects.
Right.
Justin, what reveal are you thinking of?
The one that's coming right
forthcoming.
now. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I was going to reveal that, then I would have revealed it.
Fair enough. The book 6 reveal?
No, the one right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like Amara's reveal, so for a lot of reasons. So let's just get to it, and then we can stop pussyfooting around. So
Brent's is still having a lot of mental issues, and he starts talking about like he didn't want Rook to die because she was comforting and familiar, and she was his first when he was basically still a child, and his father was forcing him to become an evil person when he didn't want to, which basically confirms that Masha is Princess's child, that the one that Rook is trying to save. It's like, and see, I'm trying to remember exactly how it happened, so you're gonna have to help me. So the reveal is the fact that the discipline collar that Amara has is not working because she was already disciplined by Bernard,
right,
and just hiding it on her thigh.
You basically get like a chapter of Amara's perspective about how blissful it is and how much she wants it, and she's getting bathed and just all of this stuff. And it's like obviously such a contrast to I'm gonna kill the fucker from last chapter, and whatever. And basically, but it gives her more of what she wants, right? And so she's thinking of all the happy things, and she's truly in love with Bernard. And so the manipulations are him and his love and all of that stuff, until she basically she pulls a knife on Princeps at one point, and he realizes that she was already collared around her thigh.
He's like cutting off her pants, gets to the slave collar. And also how like her voice, or what she's saying, because I listened to this part, so the acting was actually quite good. her voice changes from like to you treacherous murderous slave.
Yeah.
But it was
Yeah,
the cutting
like,
up the pants is
yeah.
all I could really remember. It's like, how did that part
That's
happen?
right.
Yeah, so he's just wanting her to be naked, and then
Right.
the slave collar was there on her thigh, and so then she rips out his throat and
Yeah.
goes and finds Bernard and goes and starts freeing
Because
all
this
of the
is-
other people that they could.
Yeah, you get another like quick second where it's like Amara knows that she has to strike immediately because he is High Lord powered, and if he gets the drop on her, she will not win. He has too many different talents that he's going to be faster than she is and stronger and all of this stuff, and she basically like stabs him in the throat or something like that. But it's the reveal of like the despair of like, holy shit, like Amara is gone, to the triumph of and also just the cleverness of using the rules set up in the world, because they make a very brief thing on like, you can't be collared more than once, and this is how the collars work, and this is why Rook is gone, and all of this stuff to like set up all that drama, and then it's just like, oh, you smart son of a bitch. Like,
Yeah.
what a great
thought
way
it-
to shortcut that, you know.
There's a reveal in this scene as well that I thought maybe it won't become relevant. Maybe it's a back world build. He did a lot of back world building that didn't become like relevant or like brought up. But I can't help but think that the line, the High Lord line, didn't end here, because how he talks about how Rook was his first and she was sent to him, and he didn't know until later that she was an agent, and she has a daughter that the High Lord kept very close. I feel like she might be of that bloodline.
Yeah, no,
yeah.
like that's at least what Amara and Bernard believe. It's that Masha is of the Caleris bloodline and of Rook, and so very powerful watercrafter over there.
It's not.
She
It's
is going
not brought up in
crafter.
Princeps, I think, but maybe it is in First Lords. I don't know.
Well, they
But that's
take
We'll
what
have
I
to
thought
read.
when I heard it.
Brentis' thought as proof. They take what Brentis just said about his relationship with Rook as proof of Masha's parentage.
Even though Rook did say that it could have been any number of one of 10 or 11 men,
Right.
and it was talking about Masha the first time you hear it. So, sure.
Yeah.
But is that
like
did I just miss that?
previously,
Is
I
that
just
do they say that in Princeps that they think she is the heir to that line? Or is that brought up in First
Calere
Lord?
doesn't exist anymore, so there's not
Right.
much to call her heir of, but she is the heir of the bloodline, if there is anything to
But is that
look
said
back.
here in Princeps?
No.
Okay. Because I thought that like that was my intuition, but I didn't feel like it was confirmed in Princeps, at least, and I haven't read First Lord yet, so I don't know if it gets confirmed. But it sounds like it does get confirmed.
I feel like it's one of those, all of the pieces are there and it's strong conjecture with evidence. Like I always thought it was Brentis Major, and that was as far as I went, you know, with it. Whereas that she is encouraged to sleep around as part of their training and infiltration process and whatever. And so, you know, they mention it could be one of 10 or 11 people and whatever. I didn't even think about it being Brentis Minor, but either way, there's good odds that it was one of the two of them. And, you know, I guess this kid gets the fury crafting, but it's not like next book she turns into a phoenix and says, I'm Calere's heir, and starts burning.
Might be relevant
down,
in Aeronaut's Windless, potentially. Who knows?
Yeah.
Or
I mean, I'm sure at some point in history, like, because no one's going to be able to vouch for this kid. And she's so like, either you're going to get one of two things, right? Either like, and this might be minor spoilers because I think it might be in the beginning of the next book, but it's like, so Amara and Bernard take care of this kid, right? And she gets her ponies that Arya promised her or whatever. But you know, so like they don't have strong fury crafting kids of their own, so maybe she's just like adopted into their line, and they'd be the kinds of people that it's like, this is my daughter, I don't care that she's not my blood. Or in like 2 or 3 generations, isn't it really weird that bastard child sired this really strong line of you know, fury crafted people?
It's weird. It's weird how it was a very powerful aircraft and a very powerful earth and woodcrafter, but now it's a very powerful everything. How did that happen?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to take it, but it doesn't get spelled out, you know. So But
Okay, but this is now the moment that Andreas has been waiting for. As they start releasing the Fury Crafters and the people are start trying to fight against the Vord, or the other ones are discipline collared, and there's a particularly good fire crafting, and then enters, and he's not going to do it. Okay,
Sorry, my cat's distracting me.
you missed it. She set it up perfectly, and you're just
come
like,
on, guys.
line. What's my line?
Line. Well, the line's good. Lord.
Graham.
Why can't I remember his name?
Really?
Come on,
Four
we did
letters.
this on Discord.
Lord
no.
Graham.
Graham, yeah, Lord
Yeah.
Graham shows up again, and
Bernard
He
walks
has-
up.
he
And
has
Bernard
such
walks up
impact.
dramatically, and he's like, "You son of a bitch! I thought you were dead." And then they trade grips powerfully. It's like, come on, Andreas, like sell this, man.
it's but the way he talks about the First Lord and his whole surly grumpiness, it's so like it's so good. It's just like, yeah, retire to the south, he said. You know,
Right.
Live in luxury, he said. Begotten confidence man.
Yeah, crow begotten confidence man. So that's Gaius Sextus, first of his name, or sixth, crow begotten confidence man. So
Because Graham retired away from Garrison, and Bernard took over the position, and now Graham is involved with a civil war again, and he doesn't want to be, and it's all Sextus's fault, of course.
Right.
Yes.
Well, yeah, because
this might be one of those times where I don't think Sextus really planned this.
No,
that
of
the
course.
Vord was going to do this.
Yeah.
So
I don't think Graham really thinks so either, right? It's just,
but he's going to blame him anyway.
Yeah,
but he's surly and grumpy and red-haired and old.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, it was because I didn't reread Furies of Calderon. I was like, I barely remember this guy, if at all. And then, like he really did. Gaius did tell him to go. What is it? The Amaranth Vale, right? Which is it's kind of like Calderon, where it's like this other, really unsettled region, and they can put Steadholts everywhere and everything. And it's kind of turning into the breadbasket of Alera, which is really bad because now it's Vord territory, so, or at least
it was productive food for them, and now it's productive land for the Vord specifically.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the Vord like to eat too, they just process it first.
If biological life is what they use to feed the Croach to make food for themselves, and they just destroy and devour everything, is it just spread to the next planet? The next dimension?
We don't know how that works. So yeah, it's one of those things, because I mean I have that question too, especially because obviously there are some differences with how this works versus how it's portrayed in StarCraft, if we're going to take it literally as the Zerg. If the Vord have been around for several thousand years on Karna, and they basically got all but hunted to extinction by the Marats, but still had done the Marat in enough that, they had an Alera style empire that crumbled back into barbarism. There's so many questions, and, how the hell did the Marat even push them back?
I kind of had a different take there, where it was it was on a different planet / dimension / magic, however they do that in this world,
or something.
And the Marat came here, and potentially here there was one crash landed Vord that was hibernating, which is in the wax forest, and then they're accidentally awoken. But it was happenstance, which is probably magnified a lot, that it's more likely to happen with the Vord spreading and spreading and spreading. Who knows how many planets are out there that's even alive, or they're all just Vord infested husks. I mean,
and presumably, theoretically, maybe we would have gotten that in Cinder Spires, if that's where that's going, or his brainchild of the Protoss are out there too, and what does that look like? Because I gotta tell you, unless we're jumping 1,000 years into the future and Alera decides that, hey, maybe Fury crafting isn't all of it, and they start developing technology somewhere like airships or something, the Protoss are pretty well known for showing up to planets with the Zerg and glassing them from space. So, it's going to be like, no matter how clever Tavi is and no matter how good the mules are, he's not bringing down, like the fucking Protoss from, that are up there in orbit. So he would change it some way, somehow, but it's like, it obviously, like, it loses the plot somewhere of like, how do they spread? Where do they come from? Are we doing with portals or are we doing through space? Like what's all of this going to
Why not
like?
both? Both is good.
Yeah, maybe these are all great questions we should be writing down, just in
I'm
case
sure the
something
director's
cool
on top of
happens in
it.
the future. So but
we'll get there.
Have we even really been promoting that yet?
Not really.
Hush.
It is an hour 24 minutes and we haven't even barely spoken about Tavi. We have got to go.
Exactly. There's like a whole half of the book we haven't covered yet. So
okay, so are we gonna call Bernardo and Amara as they basically done because they take as much people as they possibly can and then they fly them out of Ceres and back to where something is kind of safe. So going back to Tavi, and they're on ships, and things they did lose a few of the ships in the storm. Marcus has some information about like the maps and where they're going to land and things like that. They have some issues in the fact that they probably can't make it to where Nasog and Varg are from because the damage from the storm, and they need to repair before they get there.
Too,
yeah, they got pushed out towards the north, and so they have to make a curve downwards. And so maybe they can land at one of those other places at Shuar. And Maximus says Shuar, and Magnus says it's one syllable. Shuar. And Maximus says, why does that matter? And Katai says, maybe we shouldn't be insulting everyone every time we say the name. Right. Let's be respectful of people's cultures. Nobody likes being in the ships for so long, and so they're all sniping at each other.
Right.
Also, Max gets credit in this book for best mount name.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
New boots.
Max does a lot of fun things in this book.
Like even the setup, like when they're landing, is like one of our favorite moments in the series, right? So it's just like
minute 26 or hour 26 minutes in, and then now we're finally getting to Maximus being awesome
in the first like 3 chapters. So
so he is gonna go with Tavi and Varg to land at the dock that's allowed, because they're gonna try to get some permission to do more things and fix their ships, but they need to do this in the proper way. And Varg is understanding of what they need to go through. Tavi and Varg are the 2 leaders in charge of all of these people. Maximus is just pushing the boat for Tavi, and he's supposed to stay in the boat and then do nothing. And Maximus at various points he says, like, I don't know if I can't do something. And so I was like, power through ignorance. I'm just going to do the thing and then be told otherwise.
And you get this moment too where it's like basically, Maximus he's the engine, right? So he's basically doing the, like, everybody's seen the fishing boat with the outboard motor. He's basically holding the rudder with his Furies doing the pushing, and Tavi's up on the bow of the ship, like, with his cloak flowing in the back and his head up, all dramatic. And Varg is doing almost the same thing as they row in, and like otherwise Tavi and Max are like looking hard and disinterested as they come in, so it just
But so when Max says something of like, I don't need to learn anything in the academy because I don't therefore know my limitations, and then he's all worried that when Tavi lands at Cania, Tavi might not have access to any of the Fury crafting he's starting to get, because the Furies are all from Alera, right? So they might not be the same air Furies or maybe the same water Furies or anything. Maybe the metal Fury would be fine because that was.
And that turns out to basically nothing, though, right?
Right. But it was lampooning their ignorance again, because what they were taught at the academy was that the Furies wouldn't work in Cania because they are Aleran Furies. They're their birthright. But what they really are is like probably a byproduct of the planet and just how, this works, and the Alerans co-opted them and whatever. But yeah, so there's this big reveal, like, still after, where it's just like, what do you mean you didn't think it would work? Well, I thought we were okay up to the coast because the ocean touches Alera, and that's how it works. And so maybe it's because the air touches Alera or whatever, but like every scholar says that it wouldn't work here. I didn't know until we tried it.
Yeah, and Max is saying, but like the books say it's not going to work. Like the scholars agree, and Tabby's like, since when did you read books? Like what happens here? What happened to like the power through ignorance and breaking through all this stuff? It's like, well, I don't know anything. They didn't prove anything to me. So Tabby says like it's gonna work, and it's good that it does. So of course there's a meeting party to talk to Tabby and Varg, and Tabby lets Varg just start talking, and he's introduces Tabby as Tavar, and Tabby's like, the hell does that mean? As he's been learning the Canim language, but it's like, what is Tavar? It's you needed a proper name in Canim, and the meaning is close enough, but he doesn't explain it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the others are just like, the hell are you talking about Tavar and calling this monkey boy that?
And he just kind of probably writes it off. It's similar enough to your own name.
Yeah.
And we have something like, and it's fitting for what it is in our tongue. What is it? He just smiles and walks away. And it's like,
no, I'm not telling you.
The readers are totally not like, oh, this is not gonna come up later. No, not at all.
Wasn't it something like I think it was explained at the time.
We'll get there.
It was explained
we get there later.
Okay. Hour 2, we're gonna get there.
Oh my.
Yeah, there's obviously a challenge, and there's like Varg is a Gadara with the guy that is in charge of this area, or like the hunt master, the like supreme person. And so he has claim of being able to like, you will take me to my enemy because he may kill me and you may not. You do not get to take that away from him. Yeah, but the other guy
on my blood, and I have on his.
Yes, but Tavi doesn't have anything like that, so he needs to prove himself. And there's someone that challenges him, and Tavi, of course, throws him down, spears him through with his sword, and just proves that like he knows how to fight. And then it's like, oh, Tavar, yes, name makes sense. He's like, what the hell is? But then as he gets that guy's surrender, that wasn't Laurel, was it? But it's the name, whatever.
Yeah. So I think Anog is the one that we like.
Okay.
Like, and he gets like cut in the thigh, so he goes down, but it's not like life threatening or anything. Yeah. And it's Laurel or whatever that is the asshole, right? So.
Or he was the hunt master that Varg is demanding to be taken to.
Okay, maybe that's what it is. Yeah.
But there is an idiot in charge, and I'm gonna show this. Thank you, Taylor.
Right.
What was all these
sure we get that.
Like, what's going on?
It's
Should we do more Codex Alera? How can we like extend on this?
Right.
Deep dive book series, full podcast, I guess. Merge the podcasts.
Continuing, directing, going forward. Okay, there's a lieutenant that is an idiot, basically, of the Canim, and Anog is the one that Tavi fights, but he's pretty intelligent, and so they just need to get the lieutenant out of the way. And
Tarsh, I think, is that him? Yeah.
Well, he comes up. Again, so now that Tavi has defeated Anog, then he brings Maximus up from the water and says, this guy is going to heal you, and makes up for the damage that he just did, and making friends. And Anog's like, you're not really supposed to do that, but okay. Like it means everything like that as we would understand it to the Canim as well, that he just almost hurt someone, but now he's back up and able to fight within a few minutes, and he's going to be really tired or whatever in the day. But they get permission to go see Laurel, but it's going to take days or weeks to get there.
I just want to rewind a minute because apparently we weren't in sync on like what the best part of all of this leading up to was. Like the whole like I'm not sure all of our fury crafting is going to work part was fantastic, but I also like the fact that it's like, you know, leading up to that, and the reason why the whole like what about powering through with ignorance was the fact that he was bringing Maximus just in case Maximus needed to knock down every building between the shore and where Tavi was going. Like Maximus was supposed to stay with the boat, and he was just going to power through ignorance was like part of that line, and how he was going to just Superman through every wall to go save Tavi. And then when they get to shore, he's like, I don't think this is going to work. What are you talking about? Well, because I don't think we can fury craft you. What the hell? I brought you to save me. What is all of this shit? You know, so yeah, like
But all this theory I read says we can only Furycraft over in Alera. We can't do it other places. Like, well, I did it, so now I'm ordering you as your prince and king. Like,
Right.
ignore that
Forget all
stupid
that
shit.
you learned at the academy and fucking heal this guy.
Yeah,
You know,
forget everything you know before now. Done.
right. Hold on. Boop. Okay.
Right, me lord, it's gone.
Yeah.
Oh, Maximus is great. So they have to make a party of people that's going to go in towards the center of Cania to go talk to Laurel, which is where the city is because of the way the ship is. Whatever. Look at the map. There's a map in the First Lord's Fury book. So Varg is going. Tavi, Kitai, because Kitai's and Magnus says things like, "Well, why is Kitai going? She doesn't belong there." And Kitai just like doesn't even respond to him and tells Tavi, "You explain it," and walks out of the room. Maximus is going because, of course, he is. And I think that's it. How many? Am I missing someone?
Magnus whinges this entire book. Basically, there's
Oh, yeah.
there's a whole bunch of scenes where it's like Magnus tells him, "You're, the Princeps and all but the First Lord now. You can't just go into enemy territory and blah blah blah." And Tavi just shuts him down over and over again.
Yes, because
so.
he is the one who's personally responsible for all of this, and therefore he will be the one that's involved in it. And blah blah blah. He has to go personally. Yeah. So they start traveling inwards towards the continent, and they on what are they? Tarek? The hell's the mount's called?
And Darius goes with them, which is important because I like.
Oh,
Darius,
yes, Darius, because he's the free Aleran. That makes perfect sense.
Right.
And he's a part of with Varg, and they're familiar, and it gives him a sense of having a companion as well. And the animals that the Canim ride are not horses, because that horses would be far too small, but they are gigantic, sort of like rhinoceros bulls or something. They're huge, and they are
some kind of oxen, and they basically try to kill their rider as much as ride, and that just suits the Canim just fine, because that's how Cania is, as everybody's trying to eat everybody. And Andreas, were you the one that wanted to name his beast? Do you want to share that one?
Well,
here's the setup.
Yeah.
The boots.
That's only half of it. Come on.
Right. It's new boots and
new boots. Yeah, sorry.
Steaks and new boots.
Steaks and new boots. Yeah,
that's what it is. Yeah, I was like, I don't remember a cloak. What? No, that's the Canim style. It's like
it's like this is your future, and you better behave. Your steak and new boots.
Because he's exercising his sacred right as a legionnaire to complain the entire fucking time.
Yes.
But I mean, these things are like legitimately, like, it's hilarious because every time they dismount or get too close to one of the other ones to talk, there's this little interruption of the thing acting out or tries to gore them or whatever. So they all just like very quickly learn to just like slap them down or tie them up or whatever, so that they can safely dismount to camp or anything like that,
It's like it's a fun little tidbit that comes in every time, and how I think it's used for dramatic effect at some point where some rider comes riding in and so fast that he doesn't even slap down his thing, and it doesn't try to gore him because it's too tired. And they have to go report immediately that something. I think it's the Vord having dug under when it comes to like the writing is like he doesn't slap it down, it doesn't try, he just runs off. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, after showing how honoring cantankerous these things are and how dangerous they are, just as casual, seeing one that's being docile because it's so tired shows how much it's been run. Yeah. So these are the things that they're trying to survive riding to get to the city. Just don't really remember the name of the city. It's probably the name of Schwar. They don't really see the Vord there, but they have like indications that like it's been going on for a while, and they hear that like the entirety of the area that Nasog and Varg are from is completely gone. It was the first to fall, so that entire population they consider to be dead. And
we mentioned the spycrafting, but we skipped over the part that it's like Cania seems to be bigger than Alera, and they're not sure if the scale is dramatic or accurate, even though it's like it's probably accurate because everything else that the Canim does is actually like pretty precise and things like that, and that some of the numbers look wrong, and it's like each of their countries is probably a match for Alera, type of thing. Like they've got the same population and, just all of this stuff. And they had like what, six regions or something like that.
Yeah. And they all are their own independent realms, more or less, followed by the Huntmaster, Warmaster, someone like Varg.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, and Crassus did go with. I think I forgot him because he had to have been there to be able to leave later.
Yeah, he eventually he doesn't go with first contact. He goes when they go to talk to Laral. And then what was the other thing I was going to say? I don't know. I think I was going to point out the fact that it's like, so Varg is their war master for his country, but also was the ambassador. So it's like your prime minister just fucking goes to the other country and just chills. And,
to a certain extent, maybe he like handed that to Nasog in a lot of the ways, but he's still like, of course, he's still the superior, but Nasog is doing everything and has the same amount of authority. There's something there.
I get the impression that Varg semi-retired into ambassadordom and let his son take over. And then when shit hits the fan and he comes back and like that's why he gets the sash back and everything is because we need someone more, like we need you. Not that his son is incompetent or anything.
But Varg had to prove his competence anyway. That's why they had to fight in the previous book. Blah, blah, blah. We're going to skip to when they get to the city. And the city is huge and everything is built and really blocky and straight up and everything. And there's basically no light coming through because of how tall the buildings are and how dark everything is. And so it's really foreboding. But the Canim can see in the dark better than the Alerans can, except maybe Katai and sort of Tavi. So they know that like when they're walking in here, they're not really going to be able to get out unless they can fly. And only one or two of them can fly. So Maximus can't even really fly because he just kind of does these hops thing because landing is a problem with him.
I thought he mostly got over that, but like that's how it was in Cursor's Fury, at least, right? I think that's where the joke came from. He just does really big jumps, but
but I don't know. Crassus is still their flyer.
He's definitely their flyer. I agree.
In Agadam's, it's implied that he can fly, kinda, but
hops.
But then in Curses it's kind of more fleshed out that he hops. I think that's what it is, like because he flies to go save Isana, and we're not really. It's just like it just happens. He just does it. And then comes back.
That's where he does the really big jump, and Tavi has to run because he doesn't have any.
Yeah.
I got the moment because they basically like they go into the town and it's like you're in the wrong neighborhood, right? And so like you could just barely tell that there's Canim out there, and they're all like, a combination of like curious and maybe hungry and a bunch of other things, and it's a very creepy thing until Varg does what Canim do, and you see it, you saw it like it kind of at first contact, and you're doing it here again, where it's just like he kind of rides out with Tavi a little bit and says, "This is my Gadara, and nobody gets to claim his blood but me," and just calls out like the entire city and says, "If anybody wants to try something, now's the time to do it." That they just ride through the town, they also have Darius point out, their little ones, because I think, Tavi asks, I don't know if it's now or later, but it basically sets up a moment where Tavi asks, like, how'd they keep the fortifications, like, and not have to deal with the takers? And
the little ones, they have clubs and they sit and wait.
And also baby Canim are absolutely adorable. They look like puppies and like puppies and babies all mixed together, but they are still vicious and they will absolutely defend themselves to the death.
Yeah, they'll tear your fucking throat out. So
and Darius has seen that happen, and so not touching the babies. So when they get to the like big head building where Laral is, and Laral and Varg are of course having to do that little Gadara fight and talking about what they come for and what they need for help for, and Laral doesn't give a shit about Tavi, and of course has to prove himself a little bit. I don't think he had to fight at that point, but Anog was there and explained that Tavi was honorable, Gadara, things like that. But Laral doesn't want to help them at all because he thinks that if he loses against the Vord now, all of Canim is gone because this is the only realm left that is still intact and surviving, and he doesn't want to divert any resources to help the people who are now at the shores. He would more rather that they just die or leave or whatever. So what he does is like he's not going to hurt them, but he puts them up on the roof with no heat or light or food or anything, and just says, "You are welcome to stay here," and locks them outside.
That's called malicious compliance.
Yes. But see, the thing about that is that when they're outside, Crassus can leave.
Right.
I like how they just don't. He just doesn't really know Alarans. So he's just like,
Right.
yeah, top of the tower. Let make him sweat, and just like, is he fucking kidding?
Right.
Like we can.
There, it's a really great moment where you get to see their crafting all work together, right? Because it's like they earthcraft out of the roof a shelter, and then basically I think it's like Maximus or somebody drapes their cloak across it, and then they use fire crafting to keep themselves warm in there, you know.
Yeah, they just
and
kind of
just
like
all
heat
of
the
this-
stone a little
and then-
bit, and then
and
it
he
like,
heats
keeps
the
it
stone
for a
too.
while.
Right.
The
yeah,
little
it's just
oven.
like we're all wizards, you know that, right? Like we can
No.
all. This is not even. I mean, it's a little inconvenient, but it could be worse, you know.
Great place to hide some hunters, and also a great place for hunters to warm up.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. They're outside there for a couple of days, and Tavi is trying to think of what is the answer and how can he figure out his way through this. And, you know, the thing that he almost always does.
I saw the line, which is important, which is like, you know, anyway, Varg and Tavi are talking, and it's like, you know, they don't know what Alerans are capable of, are they? And it's like, they believe you are capable of, let's see. They do
Of
not
what?
believe you are capable of anything beyond what our ritualists can do. Our ritualists cannot fly, therefore you cannot either. You know, they're treating them just like they're wizards, you know, but
Mhm.
but yeah, like
While they're up at the top of this tower, they can see the fight down below of the Canim versus the Vord, and then that's part of where they see the little ones fighting the takers, and like it's a pretty impressive defense of a siege, but still the amount of Vord and the amount of Canim, Cania is still going to lose eventually. And so that's still really desperate. Crassus is flying back to the ship, and Marcus and everyone like that to try to get help. And it takes a couple of days. He lands, he's nearly unconscious, and he needs to be he needs a watercraft or healer to put him back to normal for a little bit, but then he immediately has to start talking of like, we need this people, we need that thing, because Tavi had some amount of ideas of what's going to happen, and then goes straight back to Tavi as much as he could. But this still takes a few days. After a couple of days, Laurel comes back up and demands to talk to Tavi and Varg, and he doesn't really like, wasn't there like one less of you earlier? Say, weren't there 6 of you a minute ago?
I don't know. How high can Canem count? You know,
right? Yeah. And this is kind of like a war crafting session of like, how do they possibly defeat the Vord? Everything is wrong, and Tavi offers, how about we take everyone who's a survivor and go back to Alera? We just got everyone over to Cania. Let's just do the same thing in reverse. And
right.
he, like, no one thinks this is a good idea. And how is this possible going to happen? We don't have all the ships. Like, I've got ideas of that, and I'm not sharing.
Destroyed in the storm and all of this stuff. And he's like, hey, I'm Octavian. I got this. And they're like, fucking you do, but we wish you would tell us, you know, like.
And this is when he really goes into being like starting the wizardry of I'm not telling anything. And it annoys everyone. But he has a good reason at least to start. And Varg knows enough to just like, I'm just going to go with what you do, but you're insane.
Basically get moments between like Maximus, Crassus, and Varg look at each other and be like, we're not having this argument again, so we just better do what he says, you know, and everything's going to work out-ish.
Yeah. And Katai once in a while too, but
yeah.
So because the Vord Queen can read thoughts, they need to be able to do something that isn't going to give away the whole plan, but they need to go try to kill the Vord Queen as much as they can as a last-ditch effort to do anything. They learned that there's another Vord Queen in a different area, and by watching the tactics over time, Tavi figures out that they have a range of efficacy, and then he can take advantage of that. So they're going to go try to kill one.
Miles.
Yeah.
He basically is able to get like. Eventually, they're able to get some of the reports and documents from Laurel's place and find out that it's like when. Like one of the other mountainous regions like they held, or was it Varg's place? Like they held out abnormally long, especially because it all but started there. I might be mixing
It
two
was
different
not.
stories.
It wasn't
but-
Varg's place. It was one of the other
Okay.
ones that it was because it was further enough away from the other queens that they were just able to respond better instead of
Right.
having active fights. They were like, because there was a delay by a couple of
Right.
days from the orders
They
from
would
the queen.
start off like an attack in the north, and then it was like the queen was coming down the line to issue orders, and
Yeah.
that's where Tavi was kind of able to figure it all out. But
Yeah, and they know that there's something different about the queens and the fact that the queen should be able to start making new queens all the time, and they're not, and that means something big has happened. They make a plan, and Tavi is like the thing that they all have that the Vord doesn't, even though the Vord can communicate near instantaneously, is ink. And so he's writing letters and orders to everyone of like, you're not sharing this with everyone. You're just doing your own little thing. So the Vord doesn't get all of the pieces.
yeah,
and
he writes in like contingencies and like, do go out to the middle of fucking nowhere for 2 days and then open the next letter, and give this one to Magnus and says, shut up and do what I tell you. Like,
yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And so Grassus takes all those things back to Magnus, to Marcus, the free Alerans, the first Alerans, and like takes all of the knights and all of the crafters, and they just disappear. It's like, what are they doing? You don't get to know. And everyone wants to wring Tavi's neck. It's like, tell me what's going on. But
it's called
Tavi,
operational security, so you don't need to know. Yeah.
Tavi and company decide to go into the Vord territory to try to kill the queen, and this is when he learns what a Tavar is, because it comes out and it kills one of the Vord and eats it and goes away. And it's just like, what it is this tiny little thing, but it's like the worst badger of all time. It's a devil in badger form, really.
But it didn't like set a trap too.
Yeah.
Like they came across like a wounded one, and it basically like took out like 3 of them and like wandered off, and they were like, hey, look, it's your little cousin.
It kind of just says like everything about how it's like every single wolfman is just like, okay, everybody just stand still, back the fuck up.
Right.
Yeah, no one picks a fight with a Tavar if they don't have to, and it's like,
yeah. So just so we're clear, Octavian is the Canim's honey badger. He doesn't give a fuck, and he will tear your fucking legs off if it suits him. And they just don't want to fuck with him. That's why they named him Tavar, is because Marcus like during first contact, he just like lets Tavi handle it because he knows that he can. Like, we picked a good name for you.
Yeah.
So just like,
and once Tavi understands, it's like, I guess it fits, but it's just okay. But even the Vord don't want to mess with the Tavar. They've just kind of learned to let it go and let it do its thing, and we're not going to mess with it, and it's just going to eat the Vord, and it does not care whatsoever. When they get to where the Vord Queen is, and they're walking on the same snowshoes that Tavi and Bernard had crafted, and they just had to be slightly bigger for the Canim, and it's a little bit awkward, and no one really likes it, but it worked because Tavi said it would, and so okay.
Just imagine those people who put shoes on their dogs because when they walk on hot asphalt,
the Canim have those really
the
dramatic like steps, like yeah.
And when they get to the point where the queen is, and Tavi goes inside to talk to the queen, and it looks just like Kitai, and it is startling, and he doesn't like it. But he thinks that basically he's going to sacrifice himself and try to kill the queen, and everyone else will get away fine, and Magnus will be upset, but it's better for him to die. No one else does. And everyone else just like, oh, you're not going to tell me your plan, but of course you're going to do something self-sacrificial, and we're not going to let you. So they all just,
of course, you're going by yourself, and we're coming with you.
Yeah.
So.
So
he actually wants to make like try and find common ground and make an enemy a friend, which he's done several times. And they're just like, well, we don't think the Ward's going to play like that, so we made a different plan.
Right.
And the Vord Queen is like
small other detail, like this is behind the defensive line, right? Basically what's happened is like the Vord tunneled because duh, and they tunneled under the fortifications like a couple of dozen miles inland behind the fortifications and came up, and so they find the Croach here, and he basically goes in to find wherever the queen is.
And they know this because Varg's hunters had followed them as they were going towards the city, and then crawled up to the top of the tower and reported this stuff. And also Crassus had learned some other information, like Tavi's not telling, but there was like 60,000 Canim from Nosog's region that were still alive, and he's going to go get them to try to get them out, and like he's going to save as many people as he possibly can. All of Cania is invited to come live at Alera now, except for the Vord. Yeah, so Tavi tries to says, well, if you help us, maybe we can just defeat the other queen together or something like that. And the alienness of the Vord of like, that's not how we function. It just doesn't make sense to me. And so now I'm going to kill you. And people were pretending like they had put down the Vord body parts essentially and snuck into that same area of the little like hut that he's talking to the Vord queen, and out pops the hunters from Varg, and they just like start killing everything, and they kill the queen. 2 of the hunters die there, and later
Neff and Co were the other 2. So yeah,
I have the book open. Justin says, who couldn't remember names at all before.
Hey, it's helpful.
It's fine, man. I'm working on it. I'm now keeping pace with us, and I'm trying not to slow us down with like every little detail because I would really love to.
But don't worry, I'm doing enough on that myself.
But yeah, like because it's like we skipped over Varg like having his stomach torn out by like just seeing the siege of this place and being like, oh shit, that's like Cania out there trying to knock the door down. It's like, you know, like there's so much that we've got to skip for time, and we're still like we still haven't talked about Alera Imperia yet, you know.
I know.
So
oh my god.
Yeah.
So they get away from that Vord and they run as fast as they can to the shores, where everyone else has been doing a whole bunch of things. They're building fortifications. They're disappearing and coming back with something. And Crassus is involved with all of the knights. And like somehow they're all doing things. And there's a few fights between Free Aleran and First Aleran. Marcus puts everything down. And Magnus is still just like, I don't like you to Marcus. Or like, you're too suspicious and you're too good, but can't prove anything yet. And then when Tavi gets there with company, is when the ice ships are ready. Tavi had designed and told and the other Fury crafters to do it of like put like so it's weighted at the bottom with like stone so it doesn't like top side, but all of those ice glaciers that they had gone past because they got blew off course, it's like let's just build ships out of them. It'll float.
Also because the Leviathans leave them the hell alone. Which was that little detail where it's just like, well, if the Leviathans ignore them, let's just make ships out of them. And so now they've got like football-sized, oil tanker-sized ships to get everybody home. And they're made out of ice. And as long as we stay north, they'll be fine, you know. And we've got, you know, like a legion of watercrafters to help keep it moving. And they don't have to worry about the Leviathans now because, you know, it was such a fucking clever move again, you know.
Yeah, and everyone else is like, you're fucking crazy, this is never going to work, but it's clearly working and that's not fair. And how dare you do this?
This is why we don't argue, but I'm mad about it.
But the scholars said that shouldn't work. There are like coordination and assignments of who goes to which ship, and they start figuring that out really quickly, and they're really prepared for like, okay, the Vord is going to come from this way, and that's why there's a wall over there, and they're going to have the first Aleran to defend because they're the most familiar with the Vord, and then they're going to be one of the last ones off onto the ships.
The first Aleran. You might as well call it the Princeps' personal army at this point.
The Battle Crows. Then the ones that they had found as being captives of Laral from Nosog and Varg's region, I forgot what that region was, they were being drained for the ritualists. They were being basically killed and the blood was being taken from them for the ritualists. And this was made sense to Laral because it's my people are theirs and I need their blood and like wizardry and blah, blah, blah.
But it's also like, it's kind of volunteered, right? Like we talked about it.
Usually it's volunteered, not from captives.
Yeah. But I mean,
I don't think Varg's people are volunteering it. That's not what's said in the story, I feel.
Yeah. It gets muddied here for sure and everything, but it's kind of like, what are your other choices, right? So they don't really fight it, you know, but yeah, like once everybody gets reunited and stuff, it makes sense. But yeah, like it's a big part of how Laral is doing his defense, you know, is that they've just got like barrels and barrels and barrels of, you know, blood from the Narshans, which are, or is it Narashan? But I'm missing a syllable. But basically Varg's people, you know, and it's just like bleeding out his country to try and save theirs, you know.
Yeah.
But
But they finally arrive at the shore, ready to get on boats, and Varg and Nosog did not know anything of this yet. But Tavi gets to be there when they see like there's people coming, and then one of them's holding a banner, and Nosog gets really, really, really particular in concentration, and then he starts running and meeting the people that are coming through. And Durius explains like that emblem that the person is carrying, that's the Inarashian like symbol, and that person is probably Nosog's wife. Tavi has just saved Nosog and Varg's entire family that's remaining.
Yeah, and now it's Grand Varg because it's his grandkids are there, and
the
they
puppies
do
are so adorable.
right. Yeah, exactly. They do cute Canim things, and like then Varg is like, "You fucking knew about this, and you didn't tell me." Yeah, because what would you have been doing if I had? Like you were gonna leave everything to go save them. You're welcome. So
and. Of course, Varg understands this thing of he had to be on task like everyone else. And it only is probably acceptable to him because Tavi did bring his family home safe and getting them out of Cania instead of they're dead. He just resurrected people they thought were dead.
Right. Yeah. That's what Durius says basically, right? It's just like you didn't just give him back his family, you resurrected them from the dead, like as far as he's concerned,
Yeah. And there's of course, right at the moment where they can't afford it the least is when they realize the Vord is attacking and it's the First Alerians are taking the hit. The Vord seem to be particularly targeting people that are the first spears of their century. And so they start taking off their helmets because that's how they're being identified. And everyone's filtering into the boats as much as they can. And it's a very tight little thing of like boat comes up, gets full and goes away because it's there's only so many areas that they can be. There's only a few docks. And there's hundreds of thousands of people at this point in Canim.
Oh, this is where Marcus's Fidelius is showing again, isn't it?
Probably.
He takes off the Centurion helmet, it's the first one because he realizes they're being targeted specifically.
How many other people started figuring that too?
Right.
But yeah. So I think it was Marcus and Tavi were like one of the last people fighting, of course, to try to get onto the boat. And Tavi's not leaving any of his legionnaires behind, and so he's not just going to abandon them. And Tavi nearly doesn't make it. And then the moment of the cover is when a Vord like slams into him and he knocks him off the dock and into the water. And Demos's ship, the living Fury ship, and like the woman at the front, I forgot what that's called, leans over to pull him
blurred.
up.
Stupid thing.
Yeah, I got you, bro.
Yeah. So I think Kitai tries to get into the water and gets him off. Maybe it helps him save in the Borg, but it's the ship that like grabs and pulls him up. And then
I'm sorry. I know we don't got time, but phrasing. Okay. She gets into the water and gets him off. You're going to have to rephrase that. So
she gets the Vord off of Tavi.
Whoa. No, that's just
yeah.
All right. But yeah, Tavi lands onto the Demos ship and is alive, and he's just going to go back to sleep now because everything's just too tiring. And now he's of course going to be sick again because he's been on land for a while, and now he's going to be seasick. And everyone, it's more or less a successful evacuation, and all of Cania is gone. Back to Alera Imperia, and we're going to have to end this so quickly.
Right.
It is the biggest fight of Alerian history, and like they have all of the legions they possibly can. The ones from the north are on their way down, but they're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
All of the High Lords are working in tangent with each other. Aquitaine has his own things he's doing, and Sextus is working, and Aaron's just kind of watching them go like, they know they have, like, how many days of food do they have? Oh, it's like 16 weeks worth. If they're going to even last that long, like that's just not spoken, but it's there, and they have evacuated as much as they can to people going towards the Calderon Valley because Bernard has already started fortifying it, and it can just take the places.
Okay. Or even skipping over the poisoning subplot because
basically
Aaron and the doctor basically, like, the doctor tells Aaron, because Aaron is more or less his head cursor now. He's the most experienced guy who hasn't died and is at hand, and so he's with
still
Gaius
a cursor.
And so you can still see what that's going on, and so I think it's Sirius, but with a different spelling, like with an S. But anyway, he's telling, Aaron, he's got maybe weeks to live at this point. the
Because
poison shutting down
Caria,
his
his
organs
wife, has been poisoning
Yes.
the wine that he's drinking every day to fortify himself. And
Right.
why are you still doing this,
His-
even though because Alera is under threat? And she
Habit.
says, "Habit. I hate the man. Oh,
Yeah.
like
he literally catches her red-handed, and it's like, why now at the end of all things? And she's like, habit. Just
Yeah.
leaves.
yeah,
Oh man.
even like Sextus's understanding of the damage he has done to this woman in her life. Of it's like I'm not going to do anything to her. Like this, of course, I destroyed her life. It made her marry a man 50 years older than her, and she's a political pawn and everything like that. I understand it enough. I'm just not going to do anything. It's not worth trying to
Right.
hang the woman for treason against the crown right now.
Well, and
which is a
part of
nice
it,
little
too-
character arc for Gaius in a way, right? Well, I don't know if it's even an arc. It's just
Yeah.
he's at the end of things. He's kind of seen the folly of his ways. He's going to go
He's
out
always
one
kind
last.
of felt
lap.
bad for her through the entire
Yes.
series.
Yeah,
and
even
what
in
he's-
Academ's in the
yeah.
prologue of Academ's Fury, and Miles is saying you need a woman and you need sleep, and it's like, well, I can't sleep, and Caria is not accepting of me at all ever. I can't just go demand her affections.
Except
It's
when
like, okay,
Maximus.
go get a whore or something. I'm not going to insult my wife this way. It's just like he understands her. They just don't have a good relationship.
I think it's also important to point out that like a chapter ago he got Rhodes killed for vengeance, but now he's like, fuck it, she killed me, but that was like a decade ago, whatever.
Someone hurt someone
There's a
hurting
difference
Sextus
between
is
he
more okay
feels
with than
there's
someone hurting his son.
Yeah, there's a
Right.
quid pro quo between the two. He feels like he's
Sure, that's
wasted
fair.
a lot of her years, and like he says, the kind of more valuable years. That's questionable if that's true, but there's a difference between that and then someone who killed his son. Like
Yeah. I thought it was an important foil in the moment that it was like, we do see two versions of Gaius here. We see the vengeance and we see the I've made peace with it and stuff. And what was interesting about the poison, whatever, is like it's insidious to the point where it's like even somebody of his considerable watercrafting wasn't able to stop it because his organs are literally melting basically. And the reason why he didn't catch it as a poisoning is because it's like overdosing on potassium. Like you need potassium to live, but if you have too much of it, bad things happen. And so his spice wine had this as a natural ingredient, but she's been
it's like a stimulant, right? That's from what I remember.
Mm-hmm. It's leaving deposits and all of like his spine and his organs and his brain and everything. It's like, and of course he just thought he was getting old. And Sextus says something, well, at least it doesn't hurt this bad for everyone.
Yeah. I find comfort in the fact that growing old is not this bad for everyone. It's something along those lines.
So Aaron and the doctor have to they are attached to Sextus as much as they can. They're watching from up on high in the Citadel for the fight that's happening.
Dude,
and
the crows, it was so good.
Yes.
So there's all of the citizenry essentially are fighting as much as they can. There's tons and tons of the Pokemon manifested Furies, and they're just stomping on the Vord and it's doing amazing things. And at one point, one of the Furies falls or kind of disintegrates, and Sex is like, eek, and Aaron doesn't understand because he doesn't really manifest Furies very much. It's like, that hurts. That's kind of backlash is something that hurts.
Yeah, that's gonna hurt the guy who summoned the Furies, right? You know, basically, yeah. So
and it seems like everything was going to be Alera was able to rebuff the attack. They had seen some of the Fury crafting, and Aquitaine's forces had hidden in the river nearby, made a pocket bubble thing, and come rolling out of the river and do a pincer maneuver on the
and
board.
Redirect the river to give them cover. So all of this, right, and basically just cut off a huge chunk of the Vord army,
and it was working.
Right.
And then
the fucking character development through this series, especially here on Aquitaine. Jim's really good at it, but it also it harkens back to what Justin said with how even the bad guys are, well, except for the Vord, are they're very understandable and they're not that bad after all. And even Aquitaine, who's kind of just been a backstabbing dick through the first every other book.
Yeah, this is the book where he gets the characterization, and I started rooting for him. What?
Right.
He's been the evil guy, but his motivation, his direct motivation, is so sympathetic, and it's like Fidelius's, which is revealed in chapter 1 of the whole series, but even more noble. right?
Well, because
In a way.
you find out that Aquitaine wanted to do what he wanted to do for the realm, and he was the guy to be able to do it. It turns out Invidia is the evil one,
Mhm.
you know, and so like that will
Imagine
get
that.
more
Nvidia
reveal.
means envy, envious. She's never satisfied with anything. So Nvidia is the evil one, and we're going to
Right.
start getting those hints very, very quickly. We've got to keep moving.
Right.
Oh my god, my voice is going to
Yeah.
end at some point. So with all of the maneuvering, and Aquitaine is actually like changing the tide of the battle and everything. It's like the crows that have just surrounded the city, and of course they're
Yeah.
always there. Crow begotten
The
things,
crows
of
are
course.
always there. They've shown up for every battle. They were at the battle of the Elenarch. They were at the battle of, they're just ever present, which is, and they always pick at the dead, which is why they're a curse. And the Alerans just kind of were like, well, there's 10 million crows out there because they know it's the biggest fucking battle in Alerian history, just like everybody else does. And
then they were all taken. And like
they were
it's just,
takers. Oh
yeah.
my God. Like they're out there. Gaius has burned the outbuildings of Alera Imperia to delay the Vord for hours. Aquitaine gets into position. He diverts a fucking river to cut off the first part of their charge. And then it doesn't fucking matter because thousands and thousands of takers just got dropped over the wall because the Vord know how to use your fucking assumptions against you. And it was so good where it was like, wait, why are the crows exploding? What the fuck is that? And Aaron and Gaius almost not making it, you know, because, oh, geez.
And then after this, the whole scene, the first Lord going Super Saiyan.
Oh god,
Yeah,
hold on,
and
hold
so
on.
Aaron,
ends
give
the
me my big red button.
Yes. But part of it is Aaron leaves for like a minute, and then he's like, I know what we need to do or something. We need to leave or something. And Gaius is having a conversation with somebody who doesn't exist. And he's like, will you please do this thing? In a woman's voice. It says, if you ask for it, but like your father would be rolling over in his grave to hear you say this and something or other. Would you please do this thing? Like, oh, sure. And then Aaron kind of sees this woman made out of entirely fury crafting, and then she disappears. And Gaius is just like, you're going to pretend you didn't see that, and we're not going to speak of it.
Yeah.
But he
there's
hands
a
Aaron.
very specific line that's very important, and I'm paraphrasing here, but I know like how she's like, in the end, who lives on the planet, it doesn't matter to her.
Mhm.
But it seems like she likes Gaius, and the Gaius is the line. So she's like, all right, I'll do whatever. We don't really know, except it's go to Tavi in some capacity, right? That's but like I like how it's like, even though the Vord will just spread and consume all life, and like I guess the elementals will be fine, therefore she does not care.
Yeah.
But
She's not human. She has a different perspective. But
Right.
Gaius hands Aaron 2 letters and says, one is for my grandson and one is for Aquitaine. And that just like get the doctor and get out of here because everything needs to end
and
now.
here's my signet dagger, a very important thing.
Mhm. Yeah, it's like, here's all the important things, and now get gone immediately. And the first Lord of Alera makes a volcano in the place of the city and destroys everything he possibly can. And it did also kill a whole bunch of his own legions, but they were also being taken by the Vord. And it basically all that's left is Aquitaine's forces of the ones that survived. But most of the Vord forces are also decimated enough to the point it gives them a little bit of breathing room. And so it's a terrible, terrible sacrifice. It's the worst thing the First Lord has
even
ever
still
done.
after this,
I believe especially the Fury crafting Vord, which had been built up, right? I think were those particularly taken. So the Fury crafting Vord plus all the Vord horde, it basically they're set back to square one. They still will grow really quick, but without the advantage of a lot of their Fury crafters. So they killed Bernard and Amara killed the source of that, and Gaius killed just about lift up his fist.
Yeah,
right.
And he
killed everyone.
Yeah,
he creates.
I wonder if this
super
was also
volcano
what
for the
he
second
asked
time
her.
in as many years. So,
because this seemed like, I don't know, like planet scale fury crafting, making a volcano out of nothing. If this was Alera, like if that's why he's like, your father would be turning in his grave, because he was like, can you help me destroy our capital?
but I get the feeling that Alera Imperia is built on a volcano, like that. that's some of the great furiness that was going on. So like basically it had been dormant maybe as part of their like taking it over and whatnot. Like I don't think Alera just created a new volcano. But you know, I guess it's possible. But yeah, like and then because I've got the section here, basically like when Aaron and it's Sirios, so it's close enough. But when Aaron and the doctor get out, basically they run up to an outrider and they're like, so it was all for nothing. Like Gaius just like decimated the capital and basically wrecked this country. Because the other thing that you're going to find out more and more like becomes important for the rest of this book and more books is that Alera Imperia is where all of the roads lead. Like all roads lead to Rome, that everything goes through Alera Imperia. So it suddenly turning into a volcano is bad for a lot of reasons.
Will that doesn't
feel like an ass pull, because it is literally how everyone knows that idiom at the very least.
Right.
So it feels like, oh, it fits the setting. Oh, right, it's Rome.
Right.
Yes.
Right. But yeah, so basically they say that, you know, what's left of the Vord forces isn't half a tithe of their numbers, which a tithe being 10%, right? So he wiped out like 95% of the Vord, but they've only got 3 tired legions left too. So they also got
I have a little more than that, I think. There's some of the others
sort of. At that place,
here,
they only had the 3 tired
legions. Only 3 exhausted legions left to us and no strong defensive position. The silver lining comes here in a minute when the rest of the Rohirrim come over the edge with Gandalf. But right now,
right, because as they
Aragorn
are going
and
north,
Theoden are about to charge out. Okay.
As they're going north, they're heading towards where Antilus and Isana, now having recovered from their fight, are heading south. Finally being able to leave the ice wall, and this is the moment of the final conclusion of that their little relationship, I guess. Of Antilus hands Isana a letter and does something with his soldiery, and then comes back and she reads his letter, and it was from Septimus to Antilus, explaining why he didn't want to marry Invidia. I think of like she's all perfect, and my father says that it was really important for the political reasons, but I can't like her. I can't do anything with that. And he had found Isana, but he was pretty sure that Claire and Rhodes and bad things are going to happen. And he's very suspicious. And when he gets out of the Calderon Valley, maybe they can all go do some things and investigate this and clear things up in the realm. And Angelus then, when he comes back, explains he didn't trust Isana because she could have been one of the reasons that Septimus was killed. She could have been one of the agents working with Invidius and Rhodes and Claire to murder the Princeps and his friend. And he didn't trust her until that Juris Macto fight, when he felt the validity of her emotions.
Hell of a way to do a truth finding, but you know, whatever works. So
yeah. And now he doesn't like Sextus. He doesn't know that Sextus is dead. Well, he doesn't want to fight with Gaius, but maybe he can support Octavian and all that. And also he now personally feels loyal and supported by Isana as First Lady of Alera. And so what does she order? And she says, those Vord are going to come up and hurt our people. Go show them what's what. And he takes his people down and starts killing all of the Vord that they can. That's chasing the route of
it's such a fucking good line. I wish I knew where it was.
I love
yeah, I got it. So let's see. They're talking about their letters and whatever. So Antilus says, you know, Highness, and Asana says, these creatures have destroyed our lands, murdered our people. Asana lifted her chin. Pay them for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I will give
and he says, here. Watch me. And I got chills right now. Like I can't even fucking finish saying it.
Kate Rating actually delivers that really well in the audiobook. It was I got goosebumps.
I got goosebumps reading it. So it's so good, you know.
It's also there's like, I think it's what's her name? Oh, there's so many characters, man. The Fire Phoenix woman.
Arya?
Yeah, Arya. Where it's like, do you see what banner that is? It's it's Alarans. That's all I need. I know it's Aquitaine, whatever. It's Alarans.
Yeah, even Isana at this point is like, I know Akatane is my enemy, but he is also my friend, and they are Alerans, and they all get to be helped. They are not going to do that game of withdrawing help because I don't like your political people when Alerans are Alerans and they're all suffering. So,
Yeah.
That's the last thing is Tavi on a boat trying to figure out how to stand and breathe again. Still thinking about like everything that's happened and everyone's alive and something or other going back to Alera. And the Fury Alera shows up to say, oh, by the way, now you're First Lord because your grandfather is dead and I'm now yours.
We don't even get that far in Princeps, actually. She's just like,
Right.
what are you thinking about? And he says what he's thinking about. These are all these things. Like, oh, you people never change. Or something.
Right.
And I think he asked her, like, what do I call you? And it's like, your grandfather always called me Alera because she is the Furies attached to the entire country. Is why he's able to do everything. And that is the end of Princeps.
Yeah.
Will we finally get the Codex explained in the next book? Like what it means? The Codex Alera, exactly.
Hi. Have you been reading the books? It's all of them. Yeah. This is the story of Alera.
Okay, because I remember from the prologue or something from the first one. I just remember. Okay, so I just remember having this impression that there is like a Codex Alera, like there's like maybe a book or something with the agreement they have with the Furies or something. That's what I thought the Codex would be.
It's just
the
writing down of the story of the histories of Alera.
Yeah, a manuscript book, especially of scripture, classics, or ancient annals. This is the story of Alera, like it's not how Alera was formed, but it's, certainly their roughest patch, if nothing else. Not to spoil the ending because, that would be pretty terrible for you. But yeah, so, it's the story of, and now you got to ask yourself of the question, is it her story? Or is it the country's story? But I personally think it's the country, so,
yeah.
But yeah, you'll find out so much more in the next book about all of that stuff. But yeah, just powerful stuff, man, because if you thought one volcano was good, we got two. And, like,
what about second volcano?
Right. It just, Gaius being Gaius, man. So
I think one of the overall themes of this book is what you're talking about 5 minutes ago with the they're Alerans, enough the political games, and that's Tavi's through line. That's the through line of the story with Aquitaine. That's
even Aquitaine is like it's interesting how he became what he hated. He wasn't like that.
It's cooperation without coercion, and then you have the Vord, and they're just coercion or puppets or that sort of thing. So the whole dynamic with the Vord as puppeteers is so clearly the big bad in all of Jim's series, right? The puppeteer in Cinder Spires is the puppeteer. The outsiders and Dresden.
Outsiders.
Right, exactly. It's so similar of a modus operandi, but I think what Codex Alera does better than Dresden Files is making it about making it an ensemble cast. And that, obviously Dresden Files. Files, we'll look at the name of the book. Where
I just want to say, did you just walk into the wrong neighborhood? Saying that here on this here podcast. How dare you have such a dissenting opinion?
Well, I think that's what the Codex Alera is trying to do. It's trying to be an ensemble cast, and I think it works really well as one. I'm just not sure that Dresden Files overall, it's so focused on the main character, and it should be, right?
It's hard because we've had a lot more books to get to know and love, like the ensemble, like the Dresden and Friends, right? Like all like so it's hard to like put that down. And then, sure. That's. But I understand where you're coming from.
Good, I'm glad.
Even if it is heresy.
Well,
holy
crap! But we did it. So
yeah.
We tried to do at least the good parts justice, but there's so many, even some of the small parts are great,
Yeah.
So many characters we skipped over that were fantastic in their moments. And we'll get to see more of at least, and Tavi will continue being brilliant and all the things that pay off in the next book. So
Oh yeah, there's so much.
and all the
So-
shit that doesn't. Like, I think this is the one where it's like during Sextus's speech to the Senate, basically telling them that they're at
The
war.
children of the
and-
sun, and like, who the
Yes,
fuck were they?
like, what is
Yeah.
that? And it's not even the first time that it gets brought
Oh,
up
man.
either, because like I think Araris brings it up at some point, and I'm like, can we know? Like, and so it occurred to me that it's probably like Jim's like, hey, but by the way, the Romans and like the Egyptians kind of had a thing, and so he's like again pulling in something that parallels, something from Roman history, but like it made it seem like the children of the sun had basically banished them, with some kind of like magical artifact. So like the Alerans can't get to wherever they are or
Yeah.
whatever. And I'm like, I would like to know more about that, please. So yeah,
Oh, well,
like that's one of those
oh.
things.
Thank you,
that I'm-
sir. May I have another?
Yeah,
Mhm.
like
I've got a big theory about that. I think we will get more of that. I think that's what Cinder Spires is going for. Because I think the
interesting.
children, as I just said, the children of the sun they're like Egypt for this setting, but aren't they really in a jungle?
Yeah.
Right. And
So,
that's
and
like that's
isn't-
why I
isn't
got
the-
like
isn't it the
confused by
most
the map.
Victorian
Like,
gentleman thing ever? The most Victorian gentleman thing ever to go to a jungle and get a secret artifact and do that
Right.
sort of like adventurer stuff. And
Is that
that's
a
sort
Ginger
of
reference?
the steampunk thing that Cinder Spires is
Yeah.
doing.
I like where your head's at. I want to believe, but I'm gonna reserve it. I'm not gonna get excited until
I
at
know.
least
Oh, yeah.
Olympian Affair comes out and we know more.
Oh yeah, for
so-
sure.
Which is in like 2 months. So it's on the calendar. It's happening.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So
All
I
right.
need to reread
I'm
that.
forcibly hitting the end because I have to just stop existing, go take a nap. Okay. Thank you, everyone. This was intense.
Thanks for tuning in, and come back for the 4-hour show for the last book.